Welcome to the world of tomorrow. You are about to take a journey out of this world into the world of the future.
The atomic age was born.
The world of tomorrow became the world of today,
bringing together all people in a new era of understanding.
Good sense requires that all of us prepare for any eventuality.
Imagine, if you can, an electronic brain operating at millions of a second speed.
Electrical pulses transmitted with the speed of light.
Limitless power at man's command. On man's wisdom, on his firmness in the use of that power, depends now the future of his children and his children's children. But wisdom demands, too, that we take time to understand this force.
Combat Information Center is alert. Its radars probing the darkness, ready to give early warning of any unseen enemy.
But have no fear, we are monitoring the situation.
It's really nice.
Like, it's cliche. I used to joke. People were like, it's
Oh.
a dry heat. I'm like, so is an oven. Stick your head in there for a while. But the thing is, literally 110 in Phoenix is better than 95 here with 80% humidity. Not even close, especially for men of a certain size.
Well, those of us who are of a certain size and girth, the sweatiness is rather unpleasant, if you will.
And you're not even in my weight class, dude. But you know.
I go up and down. I've been there. It's just, it's unpleasant. But, so we've got lots of great topics to talk to, the folks, talk to each other, I guess, first. I have been popping, on all kinds of different things, but you, my friend, are going to kind of discipline the conversation.
Well, I don't know about that. That might be a bit of an overstatement.
Well, if you don't have it, I don't have it. I think we're destined for another 3-hour extravaganza. So, folks,
what shall we do?
Yeah, folks, buckle up because, I've been thinking about this, Steve. And guys, as always, if you could hit the like and subscribe button, do our necessary housekeeping, we would very much appreciate it. I've been thinking about what it is we do here, right? And you said, I believe, in the first episode that, the broad outlines of our show is sort of looking for signal in the noise. And you said something that I didn't quite get at first. And you were saying, look, I don't want this to be merely a hot take type show. And I think you're right. It doesn't mean, of course, part of monitoring the situation is paying attention to all of the hot takes, right? And of course, there's always tons of hot takes. But I think what you and I are trying to do is both pay attention to the hot takes, but try to go underneath those a little bit and see, like, what is kind of animating these hot takes and what are the perspectives on it. So it's a little bit meta, I think, what we're trying to do.
You know what it makes me think of as you're describing it is, do you remember those old tabletop games? I don't remember if it was football. I think it was hockey. And they had like the slots on the surface and you had the little figures, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And you can move them around, but there was this whole like apparatus underneath the surface of the playing area that had all these mechanisms, and you were using levers and you were moving the pieces around on the board without physically touching the pieces yourself.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like as we're looking at things. Like, we're seeing the surface level, all the people moving around, doing different things, all the developments and the technology and the geopolitics. But we're looking to try to understand, well, what is the clockwork machinery underneath the surface?
Right. And the tricky part of this kind of monitoring, I think, is that we are also on the surface level of the board being played and manipulated and moved around just like everybody else. And right. So I just in a spirit of humility, we would be arrogant and foolish if we were to suggest that we weren't susceptible to the same kind of mimetic forces that are operating on the surface level and even below the surface level. But I think just developing a kind of, not merely a horizontal consciousness, but a vertical consciousness. And remember, vertical consciousness goes up and it goes down. And so if you kind of imagine, I like this image you're using of the sort of almost it's like foosball, but hockey and football.
Do you remember those old games? Like my great aunt had one up in the upstairs room, and I would play with it as a kid. And I was like, this is crazy how complicated this is just to play this game.
Just looking up under. Yeah. Well, and so, so developing this kind of consciousness, I think, takes time. And so it doesn't lend itself to, shorts, even though I know we cut things up and we try to, seed the show in a bunch of different ways. But it really does take some time to kind of, mature these things out. I
would also say that it's a perishable skill. Like you and I both find ourselves kind of being sucked into things sometimes.
Yeah.
And then pulling back and going, wait, we're doing the thing. Like we're subject to manipulation as well. We're training ourselves to be more resistant to it and to try to understand what's going on underneath. But you get pulled back into the game because the game is playing all around you at all times.
Right. And the one of the things that I try to pay attention to is we have all these kind of mental scripts, right? And all of us do this. Like, I apprehend, I pay attention to something and it immediately gets kind of sorted by your brain, right? Mm-hmm. Something I should, like, it could be something simple. I should concern myself with this, or I shouldn't concern myself with this. I should get angry about this, or I shouldn't get angry about this. I should be excited about this, or maybe I shouldn't be excited. And so the mind has all these shortcuts, these mental scripts that we play, I think, just as a kind of resource management.
It's a filter because there's too much coming at you.
Right. So to take these opportunities, one of the things, where I really dig about doing this show with you once a week, every Wednesday, released on Friday.
Thursday, usually.
Thursday, sorry. Because you're quick, I should say, is that, it gives us some time to kind of, I don't want to say exactly kind of go above and look down, but to kind of like retreat just a little bit, look on the undercarriage, look on the side, look to the left or the right, go off the ball a little bit, and just sort of say, okay, there's all this noise that is pretending to be signal. Is the signal really signal? And is there something that is being left out that is being sorted by the brain, by, our attentional capacities as mere noise?
And why did I filter it that way? Did I choose it?
Right.
Or was I trained to filter it that way and I didn't question why, because I'm being manipulated as well.
Now, why do you think this is a potentially vanishing skill?
Just because I've noticed that if you don't maintain vigilance, it's I'm trying to think of a good analogy for it, but it's it's kind of like suspension of disbelief. It's like if a theatrical production of some sort is well done enough, you become immersed in the fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
And you become part of that world, whether it's a novel, a play, a movie, whatever it is. If it's well done, then you kind of begin to take for granted that the rules of the stage are the rules. And you forget that it's a performance, or you forget that they're actors, or you forget that the story is fictional for a little while. Yeah. But if you're constantly immersed in a fictional universe, like, how do you continue to remain with 1 foot out, 1 foot past the fourth wall? Mm-hmm. And even like things that people have commented about how we have a meta narrative going through all these episodes. We try to focus on something more than others in each episode, but it's one of the hardest jobs I have is trying to come up with titles for these, because it's always kind of, we're excavating the same thing, and as we're excavating, Phil is kind of dropping back down on top of it, and you're re-excavating. Or
it's like when you're a kid,
we talked
like
about,
when you're a kid, you're trying to
build
dig
a sandcastle.
the hole in the sand. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and so sometimes there's something that will come back to me that I've thought about it 100 times, but for whatever reason in the shower today, I was like, wait a minute, like what is that? What is that thing that it's blown by me like 15 times, and now all of a sudden I see something.
Right. And if you look at the technology of stagecraft, you were talking about that, it's like, it works insofar as the storyteller, the writer, and then of course the actors that are realizing the vision. It only works if, you can kind of get into this point where you forget. Right. It's a sort of strange act of forgetting. And, I know critics will call it, the willing suspension of disbelief, but if it's really done right, it's not a willing suspension of disbelief. It's an unwilling suspension of disbelief, right? There's a beautiful moment, in Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream, where, it's at the very end of the play and all these sort of wacky stuff has ensued in the woods, and they're now back at the castle, and the three couples have gotten married, and they are ordering entertainment, basically to pass the time until they can go and consummate their respective marriages, right? And the joke is that they are going to bring on, they pick one on a list, and it's these complete, this terrible acting troupe, right? And it's the Mechanicals, it's Bottom and Flute and, all these people, they're just terrible actors, right? And the show is terrible. It's terribly written. And the king's like, no, that's the one I want. And Philostratus, the games master, is like, sire, you do not want this one. This one is a really, really bad one. It's like,
right.
Like it's bad. Like, trust me. He's like, no, this is the one we want. And so they get up and they start this absurd riff on Pyramus and Thisbe, which is, of course, interesting because it's the source material for Romeo and Juliet. And A Midsummer Night's Dream is a kind of companion play to Romeo and Juliet. So as sort of moving and tragic as Romeo and Juliet is, Midsummer Night's Dream is sort of its photo negative, right? But anyway, in this moment, so they're all sitting there and they start this play and it's terrible. And the king is kind of making fun of the actors, and, the other people are kind of making fun of the actors. But in this sort of incredible moment, something magical happens where, despite the bad writing and despite the bad performance, something kind of takes over and everybody's kind of moved by this thing. And so it's this wonderful salve against a kind of irony poison, a kind of realism poison. And it is in that kind of unwilling suspension of disbelief, you can be moved in that. Now, what's interesting to me is I sort of use that as a kind of an analogy. We find ourselves being moved, and sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. We're not talking always about stagecraft, but when we're paying attention to all these hot takes, everything that's going on X and on Instagram and Facebook and the news and all that sort of stuff, you have to kind of develop this sort of almost a kind of metacognition on these things that you are being moved by, negatively or positively, and say, well, wait a second, what's really going on?
It sort of puts a little more punch behind the line that all the world's a stage, huh?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And honestly, and there's an
100%.
inverse thing here, like us doing a show, our best work is done when we forget the audience is watching.
Right.
And every time we're talking and we're thinking, oh, should we explain that a little differently? We're anticipating comments that we're going to get, like, it begins to break that fourth wall.
Yeah, that's very true.
And the discussion becomes less rich because our goal is dig up the truth, talk about it, try to make sense out of it. But when we begin anticipating reactions, we start shaping the way that we do it, for somebody else, for somebody who's not in the room.
Right. And of course, both of us are, I think, bright enough to recognize that as soon as there's a camera, there's acting, right? So, you and I got to spend, several glorious hours together at your place down in Raleigh last week in the lair, secret underground lair. I was waiting for the sharks with laser beams, but I got none of that.
Yeah, I don't have room.
All I got was bourbon, which is, it's pretty good.
It's not the worst.
It's not the worst. But, sorry, I lost my train of thought. So, this is, even though we're having a conversation, it's different because I'm talking to a camera, you're talking to your camera, right? So there's always this kind of this layer of it. But, I think, taking 3 hours to kind of tease this thing out, hopefully we can get to those points where we're just having a conversation. So, if you don't mind, I know I'm going to submarine, no, not submarine. I'm going to blow up your plan here. But one of the things that I have really been struck by in the last several days has been the sort of the social media performative outrage and chatter about this Clancy case. I think it's
I don't think the outrage is performative.
Well. We have a lot.
Some of it always is, right? Some of it always is.
Well,
but
what I mean is that there was video after video after video, especially on TikTok, right? Video after video of women reacting to the Lindsay Clancy case, and they're holding their babies, and the tagline is, Lindsay, sane. And or the versions of there are these women who've like set up a camera, and they're taking like a bucket of ice and throwing ice in a kind of performative rage in the bathtub because they're so upset and angry on Lindsay's behalf.
Or my understanding was they do that in lieu of blowing up at their toddlers or whatever. Like that was what I understood that exercise to be. This is what I do. I go throw ice in the tub or whatever. Right. But it's like, I think we have become so saturated with POV videos of people's lives. That we forget that we're looking at something staged. Anybody who you've worked in Hollywood, my major was radio and TV production in college. Like when you understand what it means to work a camera, to edit something, whatever, you can still lose yourself in a show. But, my wife always used to say that I taught her about video production. Yeah. And then every time she watched a show or a movie, all she could see were the camera shots. Like, how did they set that up?
Right.
How did they get that angle? Like, what were they thinking? Right. And so it's easy to see a woman like chucking ice into the tub, and it's like it looks like a handheld shot or whatever. And you're like, oh, like I'm just peering through the veil at someone's life. Like, Ebenezer Scrooge, kind of floating my way over and seeing what's going on. But what's actually happening is that chick in the middle of her tantrum, supposedly stopped, went in, got a tripod, screwed it in, like put the clamp on her camera, set it in the tub. It probably tipped over a couple times.
Got a ring light, because everybody's got one of those laying around.
Yeah, check the back of her phone to make sure the shot was framed properly, or else it would have been cockeyed. I mean, I can never keep this camera level half the time. So there's all this adjustment that you have to do, which is by nature anti-tantrum. You have to engage your prefrontal cortex. You have to think about things. You have to maneuver things. By the time you're done, you shouldn't be mad anymore. Right?
Or rage crying. I
mean, and so it's a performance.
Mm-hmm.
And we forget that it's a performance because it looks like we're looking at someone in the next room.
Yeah.
And that is the trick. That's the spell.
Man, and of course it's just hyper mimetic, right? And so you're seeing iteration after iteration after iteration. And, we talked last episode, 2 episodes ago, just about these forces that overtake. I mean, think about the mental processes that are necessary to get to the point where you can film yourself on your couch crying over someone you literally do not know. Okay, this is a woman in Duxbury, Massachusetts. Okay,
let's remember what she did.
Yeah, I was just going to lay this out for us, right? So, on January of 2023, she murdered her 3 children: a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 8-month-old.
And she strangled them, which is a very intimate and horrific way to kill anyone, let alone a small child.
Your own child. Right.
Yes.
Your own child. Right. And so,
and it's a one at a time process.
Right.
So what are the other ones doing?
Right.
Like
and there's evidence that she had to chase one of them around to grab him, and all that. I mean, it's a truly horrific story. Right. And so I don't want that to be lost, nor, frankly, do I want to get lost, the reality of postpartum depression. I mean,
absolutely
that's a real thing.
It's 100% real.
Yeah. And it's real. And, I certainly don't want to, pretend otherwise. But this case is way more dark than your kind of standard issue, postpartum depression, So, at any rate, what has happened is it has become a kind of media sensation unto itself. Right. And then they would go to the courtroom, and like they're holding signs, we support you, Lindsay. We love you, Lindsay. We understand you, Lindsay. And maligning the husband. And, anyway, this is a pretty awful story, soup to nuts. But to watch the reaction, and you already called it this, but I just want to say it again, to watch the kind of performative reaction to this on social media, really just makes me believe even more strongly in this idea of social media as a kind of collective enthrallment, a kind of form of digital possession. And again, I'm not talking about Lindsay herself. I'm talking about the people and their reactions to it. It's pretty wild. And I think it should really give us pause, even more so. And look, you and I have talked about this, again, as recently as the last episode or 2 episodes ago. But, what is acting on us in such a profound way that we consider this, again, I'm being, broad and general.
Society, yeah.
Society, that we are kind of just doing this. Like, this is just what we do now.
Well, you know what's crazy if you think about it? Are you familiar with the 2010 film Shutter Island?
I'm not, no.
So Leonardo DiCaprio, in the film, I believe he plays a detective. I haven't seen it in many years. But like he's trying to figure out, like piece together this puzzle, and he's trying to solve this crime, and he's at a mental institution. He's doing all this stuff. And what you don't realize until the end, I mean, it's a 16-year-old film. I'm going to spoil the plot because it's got a twist at the end. It turns out at the end of this film that the real story is actually the inverse of what you think it is. It starts out with this plot of this guy gets to this hospital on Shutter Island. They have to find this woman named Rachel Soldano, a patient who vanished from a locked cell after drowning her 3 children. And he's trying to solve this case. But over the course of the case, what you find out is that the woman who drowned her 3 children was his wife. And in grief and in rage at her drowning his children, he shot and killed her and had a psychotic break and wound up in the mental institution because the guilt over what he had done in response to what she had done broke him. And they're actually doing an elaborate role play so that he can rediscover his own identity, which was shattered by the consequences of a woman doing the exact same thing that Lindsay Clancy did.
Right.
And so it's a complete inverse. Like, it broke this man, but on TikTok, it's empowering all these women to be like, yeah, I'd love to kill my kids too, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really bad. And to be fair, the outrage to the outrage has been equally performative, honestly. Where people like, you should sit down your wife right now and have a conversation about Lindsay Clancy. And if she is at all sympathetic, immediately take your kids, file for divorce, and all these sort of things. I'm like, okay, guys, like, can we just pump the brakes here? Like, I get it. You're upset.
This need for total extreme positions on the opposite sides. You can have empathy for a woman who had postpartum depression. You can also say it's murder. You can also look at the thing, you posted yesterday about how they said she was not having a psychotic break when she did this. Like, it was calculated. We don't know all the facts. We don't need to comment on everything. But I do think it's important to comment on the meta phenomenon. And you and I have both separately and together talked about the fact that women have been killing their babies for over 50 years in the womb. You racked up the number. It's like 3 billion children worldwide that are gone.
Which is a conservative number since 1973. I mean, there are people who project that as high as 4.5, 5 billion, but I'll go with the conservative number. 3 billion, as I sort of joked, it's like, 150 Hitlers. It's like
insane. I mean, and how far has that shifted the Overton window on the psychology of, well, you can kill them now, that thing that was just passed, what was it, Michigan, New York? I can't remember.
Massachusetts, yeah.
All the way up until birth.
Right.
Like, the dividing line is just non-existent. So, I mean, what's a year old, 2 years old, 3 years old? Like, I mean, still same thing. I still have the right. For the sake of my own personal fulfillment.
Well, isn't that the philosopher from Princeton Singer's point that parents should exercise the right to get rid of their children, I think up until the age of 3 or something like that? I'm not sure why.
What was the rule with infanticide in Rome? How late could they do that?
Ancient Rome, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, it must have been to 3. right? I mean, look,
it's just interesting because we keep talking about that we're kind of returning to the pagan world.
Yeah. I mean, well, I mean, if you look at the through line for, now this is going back to Greece, not Rome, but it's of a piece, so to speak. The whole through line with Oedipus is that, his parents, decide to, because of this prophecy, to throw him into the wilderness and expose him. And that was the way that they did this.
Right.
They would
Exposure, or they'd chuck him off a cliff or something.
Right. So anyway, a shepherd finds him, rescues the baby, gives them, basically, places him for adoption in a neighboring city-state. And then, of course, he comes back and, all that stuff.
But he wasn't a guy, commonly misperceived by people who don't know the story. He wasn't a guy who had a hankering for incest with his mom.
No,
he didn't know because he was abandoned.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So it's utterly fascinating to me that so you always ask me, Kale, I see you posting a lot, and guilty. Something is gnawing at me, right? And so I've just been thinking about 3 billion, children. And I think what is gnawing at me is that, look, I'll lean into the woo a little bit here, but I don't even think you have to get super wooey about this. What does that do to a person, right, when you elect to abort your child, whatever the circumstances of that may be, right? What does that do to a person, right? What does it do to a group of people who have done this? What does it do to a nation of people who have done this? And, the effect appears to be a pretty significant one, right? In other words, what is that? We have all these expressions, but you get away with nothing, right? And so
there's always a cost.
Right. And so to me, the cost reckoning has been essentially invisible. Essentially, again, I'm being broad, look, you and I both come out of, our versions of a pro-life bubble. I grew up thinking it was totally insane that a mother would elect to abort her child, whether it was, second trimester or first trimester. I mean, couldn't even conceive of a third trimester abortion, elective third trimester abortion. And to watch what happened up in Massachusetts, Governor Maura Healey, a proud, Catholic, so-called Catholic, who signed this up to the point of birth allowance, I guess you would call it. But what does this do to a person? And of course, I look at the people who are, clapping like seals in jubilation over the fact that they now have secured their right to abort their child all the way up until the moments before natural delivery, whatever that even means. And my heart just cracks, at the very thought of it. And especially if you've ever had a child who was born prematurely, a child is quote unquote viable, fairly soon after.
I think the earliest babies that have lived are about 20 weeks.
Yeah. And of course that is considered, the reasonable, abortion position, up to 20 weeks. Well, okay. So I don't mean to mire this in abortion politics, but I want to talk about this just as a phenomena. What does this do to somebody? Well, I would imagine if I am in any way sinful like everybody else, I know that when I sin, it stays with me. And I have sort of one of two choices. I can kind of attempt to reckon with the sin and offer that up and say, you know what? Yeah, Kale, you did this thing. It's terrible, right? Or I can sort of take the opposite tack, which is not only what I did, is it not a sin, but it was good. that I did this thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And so
it's either shame or self-justification.
Right. It's exactly right. So what are the limits of that self-justification? And then what are the costs of that self-justification? Right? Because, many of those 3 billion abortions that have occurred since 1973, and I'm using 1973, of course, as the date, the Roe versus Wade date, which legalized abortion in this country and was recently overturned a couple of years ago, the Dobbs decision, I think. But what is staggering to me is that many of those aborted babies are the dead siblings of surviving siblings. Right?
Yeah.
It's not like a one-off.
Yeah, like there's those shirts that Gen Xers have, I survived abortion. I survived Roe versus Wade, et cetera.
Right.
I mean, it's like, technically we're all survivors because it was an option for all of our parents.
Right. And again, I know that this is such a hot topic. I know that people get really emotional about it, but let's just try to steer this in the direction of, the unreckoned,
because there's a trade-off.
Costs.
There is a trade-off, even for the people who support this. There is a trade-off. Like, there is a weighing and a measuring that goes on when someone makes the decision to do that, even if they fully justify it to themselves. Somewhere along the way, a lot of those women decide to have a child. Well, what was different then than the time before? What did you trade for? Because looking at what you trade it for, whether it's career, whether it's going to school, whether it's whatever, it gives you a sense of what a person's priorities are.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps to kind of shape, well, if those priorities exist, in this instance, like why is that the thing that is, what are the things that are defining what makes it worth saying same, Lindsay?
Right.
Well, what is the trade you're willing to make?
Right.
Is it quality of life? What is it? What are you weighing against the life of that child?
I wish I had this queued up, but I saw a video on social media a month ago, and it was a clip of a son talking to his mother, and his mother was talking to him about the fact that she had aborted an earlier sibling of his. And it turns out in this clip, that his pediatrician was the one who had aborted the child prior to him. And it was a really staggering little short film. And the whole time I'm just watching this mother talk to her son, and I'm looking at her face and I'm looking at his face. And I just like my mind just kind of stops at a certain point, because I can't even quite reckon with this. And the coarsening, I mean, I think what I'm trying to get at here is that there's a kind of coarsening of spirit, for all of us, whether we have participated in abortion or not. There's a sort of a collective coarsening that occurs. And I think my thesis is that this is driving us mad. Right.
Well, and look, and there's an analogy here to something we've discussed before. We've talked about how when we were kids, like the only way you'd ever see somebody die is, somebody had a bootleg copy of Faces of Death or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But now when you scroll through social media, like if you just let videos run and you scroll through them, like any number of horrific bodily harm videos, people being killed, people being shot by cops, people shooting cops, like there's so much violent stuff. I have seen so many dead bodies, so many mangled bodies over the last 5 to 10 years because they just pop up online, and I'm like, didn't subscribe to that, but there it is, right?
But there it is.
And so that also is doing the same thing to us. We're being exposed to dehumanizing imagery at such a volume that you have to almost callous yourself against it. Because if you have any empathy at all, or if you care at all, like it's going to get inside you. It's going to mess you up.
All right. So go with the callus image there for a minute, right? How do calluses form, right?
Friction.
Right. They form by friction and repetition, right? And what happens is, like if you're let's say you work a shovel, right? That the first day you're working that shovel, you're going to rip your hands apart and all those kinds of things. And over time, of course, the blisters kind of calcify over, and it creates a kind of tough skin, right? Which is good when you're working a shovel because your hand, you don't blister anymore. But what happens is you lose sensation in your hands, right? The sensitivity of your finger pad, so to speak, is lost. Now, again, if you're working a shovel, that's a good thing. It allows you to do your job, but you lose that kind of sensitivity. Now let's think about that. Again, I'm using this as a metaphor or an analogy. What does that do to your heart or to your spirit to have these kind of calluses? The friction is still happening, right? The sort of the impact is still happening. You've just lost your ability to sense it, right? Yeah, I've worked in kitchens all my life. And if you work with anybody who's been in a kitchen for a lifetime, these guys can like open up an oven, take out a pan with their bare hands because they've become so desensitized to it. And again, it's good for their work. But metaphorically, what does that do to us? You're still getting burned, right? The flesh is still getting burned, but you've lost your ability to feel it.
Look, what is the number one trope in cop dramas, in military dramas? The first time a guy has to shoot somebody,
right,
yeah. Immediate, like overwhelm, vomiting, like can't sleep at night, like taking a human life has a cost the first time. Second time, it gets a little easier. Over time, it gets to the point where the veterans are all like, yeah, been there before, man. Yeah. But now I see it every day.
Yeah, there's that meme of James Franco and he's being hung.
Yeah,
right. He's like, first time, right. And so I guess what I'm trying to insert into the conversation is that, we are living amongst millions of people who have participated in or directly procured an abortion. Like there's no way around that, right? And you could come up with justifications, material scarcity and all these kinds of things. But at the end of the day, like you're extinguishing a life that is going to happen, a life that is already being, right?
And the statistics are clear in the vast majority, 90+% of the cases, and that's being generous. This is pure elective procedure.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's not health, it's not safety, it's not rape, it's not incest, it's none of that. This isn't a good time for me to have a child.
Right. And so part of me woke up, the other day being treated with all of these outrage videos and, same Lindsay. And it just washed over me this sort of sense that, my gosh, I'm surrounded by people who have been complicit in what they know is bad.
It's why the pro-life movement will break you if you spend enough time in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you realize what seems so glaringly, obviously horrifying to you, you can talk to somebody who maybe you genuinely like.
Right, totally.
But they will fight you tooth and nail on the fact that this is a necessary and good thing.
Right.
And you're like, how can you be a human being and not a monster? And just say this is a good thing.
Right. And so what also dawned on me, and again, none of this is new, right? I'm not trying to pretend like I'm coming up with anything new, but I'm just talking about this thing washed over me. It hit me, is that we've just made the whole thing so beautifully abstract. I mean, beautifully, ironically, but beautifully antiseptic and abstract. It's and we've been allowed to do it because of advances in our technology, right? That technology has kept us from the sort of the full blunt force trauma of the bloody reality. In such a way that we can pretend that it has zero cost. And what I woke up to the other day is like, my goodness, this is the spiritual manifestation of the cost of this gruesome world that we've built upon it's no longer safe, legal, and rare. We built it upon access. Right. And, shout out to Aaron McIntyre. He's a guy, I think he does a show on Blaze TV, but he had a great episode, maybe 2 months ago. We can put a link in the description, in which he basically says that the modern world has been built on access to cheap disposability of unwanted pregnancies.
So there is a line that has haunted me for many years. It comes from Naomi Wolf, who's a well-known feminist thought leader and still active on social media. It was written in 1995. The essay was called "Our Bodies, Our Souls: Rethinking Pro-Choice Rhetoric." But there's this horrifying paragraph that's really just a couple of sentences, and she says this: "War is legal. It is sometimes even necessary. Letting the dying die in peace is often legal and sometimes even necessary. Abortion should be legal. It is sometimes even necessary. Sometimes," this is the killer line, literally, "sometimes the mother must be able to decide that the fetus in its full humanity must die." And then she goes on, "But it is never right or necessary to minimize the value of the lives involved or the sacrifice incurred in letting them go." And it's like horrifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason why she was addressing this directly, and several others did as well, is because they realized that the rhetorical battle was not really going in their favor by euphemizing away what abortion was.
Right.
In language like choice and reproductive rights and all this kind of stuff, because, well, what are we actually talking about? What is the subject of the choice?
Yeah.
And so she's like, yeah, you know what? I'll just come right out and say it. Sometimes a child just has to die in its full humanity.
Yeah.
And so that is the spirit that is animating this trend that we're seeing right now. And so what does that do to everything? Because you can walk away from the abortion topic. I haven't been active in the pro-life movement for years.
Nor have I.
I still hold the same positions that I always have.
Right.
But I don't go to the March for Life anymore. I don't do any of that stuff. But it's like, but it's not like it doesn't still resonate and ripple out into the world, into the coarsening of culture, into everything that we do.
And what's, crazy? It's so cheap. Like in every way, I haven't looked it up. Maybe you can look it up, but it can't cost but a couple of $100s.
It's fairly inexpensive. I don't know what it is, but it's certainly cheaper than like the $10,000 it costs to have a baby, which may even be more since the last time I had one.
But it's so cheap. And again, I don't mean to minimize it, but it's so relatively easy to procure, that, it's as if the ease with which it all happens is itself a desensitizing phenomenon. And while I'm super glad, that people go on to have children, even if they find themselves young and vulnerable and pregnant, and they decide to have, to have the abortion, and then they go on, to have children. I'm glad they have children. I don't, want to go down that road, exactly. But I guess I'm just confronted with the inescapability of cost. Despite the ways in which our technologies can, delude us into thinking that it's NBD, no big deal.
And let's be honest, that cost is largely, not entirely, of course, but largely being foisted upon children who don't have the capacity to make decisions. I remember I talked to a woman once who had an abortion as a teenager, and she said, when I got pregnant, I had already, every bus stop, every place I had gone had these Planned Parenthood posters up. They were basically like, hey, if you got pregnant and you didn't mean to, this is the way out, right? And she was 16 or 17. And so she was like, I already had in my mind, because I'd seen it so many times, oh, this is what the answer is. I didn't really think it through. And at that age, you don't even have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. You're not making the most rational decisions of all time. But you're bringing them into this thing at an age where now they have to live with it. And maybe when they're 25 or 35, they start having kids and they can't stop thinking about the one they didn't.
Yeah.
And they have to somehow reconcile that. They either grapple with it, like we talked about, you struggle with your shame, or you justify it. And then what does that do?
Right. And so think about this, both of us have kids, and, both of us are well aware of the cost of having kids.
Yeah.
It is, not insignificant, and it never stops, but, so the costs on the go ahead and let it live side of the ledger are obvious, right? You got to pay for diapers, and you have to pay for, childcare, you have to pay for tuition, you have to pay for clothes, and blah, 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 all the stuff, right? But the cost on the other side of the ledger is just completely buried. And again, it's the ease, right? And so, look, you and I talk a lot about technology, and neither of us are Luddites. Both of us enjoy technology, but we must do a better job of running that kind of cost benefit analysis. And look, and I'm not naive. I cannot imagine a scenario in which, for instance, abortion will not be widespread in Massachusetts, New York, California, Rhode Island, Maine, New Hampshire, go up and down, the Eastern Seaboard. Same thing with the West Coast. Like, I cannot imagine a scenario in which this gruesome reality is going to be stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I just don't know how to square it.
No, and there are forces to this day actively aligned against even getting people to consider it. Like, we have a very good chance that YouTube is going to de-algorithmize this video just because we've said the key words several times.
I haven't even thought about that. Yeah, that's right.
No, it just occurred to me. I'm like, oh, we've said the abortion word 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
They auto-transcribe the videos and it goes into a little AI, and then they decide, what makes it to the top of people's recommendation things. So it's crazy because, again, the algorithm, the egregore, is participating in the mass delusion.
Now, what's also interesting about the Lindsay Clancy case, that she's a nurse.
I didn't actually realize that. No,
she's a nurse. Just gonna throw it out there.
Right.
Just gonna throw it out there.
Okay, so this actually is a good segue to the thematic core that I felt like you and I, for people who aren't part of our process, we don't really have one. Like, Kale and I monitor stories all week long, and we send things back and forth to each other. Like, did you see this? Did you see that? Kale will just send me a text and be like, monitoring, and it's a story, and then when we prep for the show for we're cramming for a test at the 11th hour.
We forget all of that. Right?
Then we go back and we look at the messages to each other and be like, oh yeah, that was good. Right.
Yeah.
And so as I was doing that today, the thing that emerged in my mind was the question of the singularity. We hear people talking about it a lot, right?
Man.
But what is it, right?
Man. Okay. But I just have to say, because I can't help myself, the vague posting coming out of Silicon Valley right now is off the charts right now.
Driving me
off
crazy.
The charts. And these are guys that, both of us follow, and I, sometimes it's real, sometimes it's not. But man, it is on overdrive right now, coming out of Silicon Valley in the big.
I think
big five.
we're prepping for the next big wave, and I want to talk about that in a sec.
Yeah.
But so what I did is I grabbed, I looked it up, and of course, now when you go to Google, Gemini is the first thing that answers your questions.
Yeah,
so why scroll through
a
crap load of web pages, searching for text when you're in a hurry? You just take the AI summary sitting at the top, which I 100% did here. But because, you have a general sense of, I understand an issue well enough to know, does this seem right? So Ray Kurzweil was the guy who, I don't know if he coined the term the singularity, but he certainly popularized it. And he's a futurist, he's a transhumanist, he's a weird freaking dude.
That hair, man, like just get normal hair, like just get a normal hair cord, brother. Like it
like
might help
I know
your
that
cause.
you're trying to live forever, but like maybe not in this body. You already think you're going to merge with the machines. And his definition essentially of the singularity is a future moment when human and machine intelligence merge, creating a civilization where non-biological intelligence is billions of times more powerful than all unaided human intelligence combined. And in his vision, it's a very cyborg future. It's uploading of consciousness to the cloud kind of a thing, which again, we've talked about William Gibson and several times. But I mean, in the 1980s, he's writing about the Dixie flatline, the construct of this famous hacker that they can upload to help them hack. The guy's dead.
Amazing.
He's living inside a data cube. Like, I don't know how Gibson, who was just a Southern boy, like he's like cyberpunk William Faulkner, like the dude.
No, for sure. For sure.
And where he came up with this stuff, I have no idea. And it's all now they're all talking about doing this stuff. But so Kurzweil formed our idea of the singularity years and years ago. And then we start hearing the tech bros from Silicon Valley talking about it. You know, Musk last December in a podcast we discussed in the AI Super Tsunami episode, which by the way is our biggest episode
Is
ever.
it? Okay,
yeah, by views.
Do you think Elon moves the needle there? Is that why? Or?
I don't know. I think it's just everybody knows that this is a big deal.
Yeah.
But he talked in an interview with Peter Diamandis about this, and he said that we're in the singularity already, right? So in tech, that's now become synonymous with the idea that AI is becoming more intelligent than humans, more ubiquitous, and fundamentally able to iterate upon itself, right? So you mentioned last episode, Escher's hand drawing the hand. That's what always comes to my mind when you have an AI programming the next AI. So he says that's the singularity. Okay, fine. But when I looked up just the term itself, separate from Musk's interpretation, separate from Silicon Valley, separate from Kurzweil, the basic definition that I got is, and this is from the dictionary, a singularity is a specific point or event where standard rules, equations, or our basic understanding of reality break down completely. Actually, no, that one was from Google. There was a dictionary definition I put in here somewhere. I don't know where it is. But this idea, again, because this is really what our show is about, like we're mapping the singularity, because the singularity is a specific point or event where standard rules, equations, or our basic understanding of reality break down completely. We spent the first 40 minutes of this show talking about a huge aspect of the singularity. Do people think about it as that? No.
No. God, it's so true. Yes.
But the basic understanding of reality breaks down completely when we desensitize ourselves to the mass slaughter of our own children.
Yeah. Right.
And with all the costs associated with that.
Right. And I can't help but point out a kind of dark irony in that one of the ways in which Musk has imagined the AI tsunami is the merging of the LLMs with robotics. And I don't know if you recall, but he basically said that the number of projected that the number of robots would far exceed the number of human beings.
Yeah, I think off the top of my head, I think he said 10 billion of them by 2050.
Right. So, okay. So interesting, right? We have succeeded. Yay us. We have succeeded in eliminating, billions of offspring, actually, and we are going to replace the billions of offspring. Now, again, I know a child is not a robot, but you kind of see what I'm playing with here. Now we'll just build the things that we need rather than, grow and birth the human beings we need. It's a dark irony there. But look, to me, I've been paying attention to the way that these folks talk about the LLMs and the AIs and the AGI and the ASI and all these kinds of things, right? Artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence. Everybody that I've paid attention to in the last weeks, I mean, we're talking about the last month at most, it's already recursive.
Yeah,
right?
that's what seems to be.
They aren't coding anymore. Like human beings are not coding anymore in these super labs. The LLMs are coding themselves.
I mean, there's a guy who is a friend of the show. He goes by an anonymous name online, but he works for an AI company. And he posted something just a couple days ago. You know, he and I interact all the time.
Yeah.
And he posted something about how I'm coding a project completely on my own just to keep my skills sharp because I don't have to do that anymore.
Wow.
That's and I just want to not forget how to do it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm very good friends with a guy who works at Google. Sam, if you're there, shout out. And he said something the other day similarly that he doesn't have to code in his job anymore, but he'll do it in that sense of kind of keeping himself sharp, but he doesn't have to. And in fact, it kind of works against him if he's trying to keep up doing your own coding. I'm trying to think of the analogy. It's like, it would be like if I wanted to cook you, a pasta dinner, spaghetti and meatballs. And you know what, Steve, I'm going to go ahead and make my own pasta. Now I can do that. I've done it before, but it's like pretty labor intensive. I can just go on down to even to the fancy supermarket and just buy some like really nice pasta. And it's like, why would I make my own pasta in that situation?
And the way it works now is there's a robot standing in your kitchen and you're like, hey, I want you to make some pasta. Can you make some fettuccine? Can you make fettuccine? Yeah. Okay. I'll hang out here and wait. Oh no, those noodles are a little too wide.
Yeah.
Make them a little skinnier. Okay. Like, can you make a vodka sauce? And you're just telling it, this is what I want. And it's doing the steps.
Yeah. And look, this is like Jetsons level stuff. It's here.
Yeah.
It's here. Now I know it's
like you can have the homemade pasta,
right.
But it's going to make it for you.
Right. It's not distributed, but it's here. Like we can do this stuff.
I want to spend a bunch of time on this. But can we back up for 1 second?
Yeah,
because I took some notes about the singularity and where it's applying right now, because I think it's applying across the board. And reality is being gamed. It doesn't mean what we used to believe that it meant.
Okay.
So the domains that I wrote down where I see the rules of reality having been broken or being in the process of being broken, just a quick list that I made right before jumping on. Religion. I mean, just this morning, I was commenting on Pope Leo's comments about how, the old mass was non-participatory and all this stuff. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Like, we have evidence of this, and I've spent years writing about it,
Years. Thomas Rees just came out and said, I hate the Latin mass.
He hates the old Latin mass, right?
Okay.
Our mutual friend Hillary White, who was, for years and years banged the drum of, who made our mugs, that pre and post Vatican II Catholicism are just not the same religion, which is how these kinds of antithetical statements can come out. Because if you hate the mass that was used for hundreds and hundreds of years, you hate the old faith because that was the embodiment of that faith. And the new faith and the old one, like a little overlap, but they're not the same thing, right? So religion, gender, clearly, right?
Yeah.
Reality has been broken. Jobs, go ahead.
Can we stay on gender for a minute?
Yeah.
Tease that out a little. What do you mean?
Well, I mean, just, 10 years ago, nobody had a dispute over what a man is or what a woman is. Now it gets argued constantly.
Yeah. And you're just talking like baseline reality here.
Yeah, baseline, biology says you have an X and Y chromosome, you're a man. You have two X chromosomes, you're a woman. If you have ovaries and you have a uterus and you can give birth, you're a woman. If you have testes and you're a man. Like, it's not hard to figure out biological concrete categories. They fall into one of two slots. It is a binary thing.
But we've gamed this too, right? And I've mentioned this, several episodes back, but, Mary Harrington, one of my favorites, she notes that we became transhuman officially with the advent of the pill. And what she means by this, right, is that technologically we have rendered the differences between men and women effectively, again, there's all kinds of footnotes and caveats to be made. We've rendered sex difference effectively nil. Right.
I agree with that, but I would expand that.
Keep going.
There's like a famous video or a famous photo from, I don't know, the 50s, 60s, it's black and white, of a woman in a factory operating a hydraulic press that she can just operate with one hand.
Yeah.
Like that nullified the difference between men and women. Your physical strength as a man is no longer needed to perform labor in any number of areas.
Right.
Because the robots, the machines, not the robots, they're going to do it next, but the machines can do it for you. They act as force amplifiers.
Right. And so, so you can see the way I just want to, the reason why I'm fixating on this one just for a second, because we can go into the rest of the list, is that these things have a kind of fractal quality to them, right? So if we're talking about, the pill, effectively rendering the differences between men and women moot, it also, there are these sort of iterative layers beyond that, right? And yet, apropos to our earlier conversation, we pretend like we've solved these problems, right? So that, if you don't want to, you can effectively be a male in the workforce until you elect in some sort of magical time around the age of 36 to become a woman again. Right. And, again, I'm putting all these in quotes, right? You can get off the pill and, you can take some hormones to sort of make you more susceptible to being pregnant, and you get pregnant and you have a couple of kids, and then you go right back, to sort of being, a C-suite lean-in boss, So, but we have this kind of this nagging memory of these baseline differences, but our technology, again, has muted us, has nerfed us from being able to recognize this on a day-to-day level.
Well, look, I shared that quote with you, from Brave New World the other day.
Right.
Where it's like in Huxley's imagined future, like the idea of viviparous reproduction between and mothers and fathers, as opposed to being decanted in a beaker in a lab, is so disgusting that it actually causes people to feel weak and nauseous and faint. And they shudder at the concept, because who would ever do something so grotesque as give live birth to a human child?
And what's crazy about that is that Huxley wrote that almost 100 years ago.
Yeah, was it the 1930s?
31. He wrote it in 31. He published it in 32. And so, he saw this in 1931. That's a crazy, ability to project forward the disgust.
Yeah.
Right.
And everybody belongs to everybody, and the birth control belts, and you're not supposed to be monogamous with anybody because you're supposed to be sleeping around. The body count discourse has entered the chat. Right.
That's so true. Yeah. So anyway, so we can see the way in which we've sort of tricked or gamed reality. I think that you use that phrase. I love that.
And none of these things are discrete.
Right.
Factors.
Because they're not discrete, because there are actual costs, but the mod is that we've been able to bury costs so profoundly well, right? But in the end, reality kind of wins, right? Maybe sort of, but we'll see.
Look, this is what I mean too when I say it's not discrete. Is if you have a budget, if you have a food budget for the month, and can you hear me? Did my audio go out?
Budget?
Yeah.
What's
if
a budget?
you had a food budget
Thank
for
you,
the
thank
month,
you, thank you,
right?
thank you. Yeah.
And then you go and you spend, I don't know, $200 on a lobster dinner, right? That's $200 you don't have for bread and milk and eggs and cereal, because there's only a certain allotted amount of resources.
Yeah.
And so it may not seem like your lobsters have anything to do with your Raisin Bran. But it does. And so, not to be the Red Yarn podcast, but it's like, when I say these things are not discrete, they all have an effect on one another.
Yeah, there's a radical interconnectedness that our technology allows us to ignore.
And so each one of these is like a different type of ammunition that is chipping away, eroding our shared sense of reality. So let me go through the list.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
We said jobs. Jobs are like, nobody knows what the hell's going on with jobs. Nobody knows if anybody's going to get them. Nobody knows if people are going to have them. Nobody knows how many people are going to be replaced.
And there's a great discourse on bullshit jobs. We've such and such has a bullshit email job. They make $250,000. Nobody really knows how or why, but they go to work. Or not.
Office Space captured this more beautifully than anything else.
Right.
And now, I take the specs from the customer and I give it to the engineers. I'm a people person, damn it.
What
Right.
would you
What
say,
does he say you do
you
here?
do? Not much, Bob. Yeah. So, right. So keep going. Sorry.
Social roles, just in general, gender roles, social roles, where we fit in society. Nations, the concept of what a nation is and whether they're going to continue to exist. Do the rules of nationhood still apply in the same way that they used to? You know, America's more sovereign than anybody else because we get to do whatever the hell we want. And I'm glad that we're the ones getting to do that. You know, if I'm going to be on a team in a world that's breaking, I would rather be on the winning team because that's, you know, survival, but whatever.
Right. And we've joked before, I've joked with other people before, but like, what does sovereignty mean in the age of Wi-Fi? Right? What is a wall? What does a wall mean in the age of digital technology?
What does a castle mean when you invent an airplane?
Right. It's exactly right. Yeah.
And dovetailing directly into nations, the post-war order, which has been our theme, you know, throughout.
Yeah.
Like the rules of the post-war order have governed the most prosperous period in human history. More people have been lifted out of poverty. More people have generated more wealth in the last 80 years than in all of human history combined. And that's going away. That's breaking. Reality is breaking there. And along with that, trade, like international trade is changing. You know, we see this especially because we have this heavily invested manufacturing relationship with China, but now we don't trust China anymore because they're using everything they've got to spy on us, including our robot freaking vacuums. And now we're like, no, we're just not importing any more tech from China because they're doing crazy stuff. They're using Wi-Fi routers to like map houses and human activities because those signals can act like sonar pings and they can actually detect physical objects.
That's so creepy. That's so creepy, people. Like, did you hear what Steve just said? Like, somebody or some LLM, more than likely, knows, like, when I go to the bathroom or when I go to the coffee maker.
Like, I didn't read this story the other day, but they said Comcast routers now have the ability to report motion inside your home to law enforcement. You know, if the proper boxes are checked and they get a warrant or whatever else.
And we're complaining about flock cameras. I mean, fine, complain about flock cameras. You know, I'll be right there with you. But like, your router is spying on you, for God's sake.
But the call from the surveillance state is coming from inside the house.
Yes, right.
You know?
Right.
So, okay. Demographics, obviously, that's going completely in the wrong direction. I mean, we took 3 billion people off the board. You know, China really trick-effed themselves when they did the one-child policy for 40 years, and now they've got like 30 million fewer females than males. So even if they want to reproduce, there are not enough couples to do so. And then it's like, oh, and by the way, the world depends on China to manufacture their cheap crap so that they can afford to live. But now there's not enough people to work the factories.
It just feels like such a Potemkin village. Like, you know,
it's all propped. I mean, we saw this during COVID when the grocery store shelves went empty.
Right.
And we're like, but why? Because the supply chain is so fragile and it's so just in time that it's like you have to stay in motion not to fall apart kind of thing. It reminds me of that story about the SR-71 Blackbird, where the compression forces from the atmosphere were so strong that they had to engineer it so that it leaked like a sieve when it was sitting on the runway, because otherwise, when it compressed in the air, it would have been too much. And so, like, it was sealed tight as a drum when it was flying at Mach 6 or whatever it was, Mach 3. I think
that's cool. 3. I didn't know that. This is a great story.
But they said that it leaked. I maybe apocryphal, but I heard that story multiple times. It would just leak fuel and everything like that because all the joints had to be loose enough so that they could compress. Because the thing could fly from New York to LA in an hour and a half.
That's just so crazy. That's so crazy. You know, right. So so again, to get back to the theme here, the cost is that you leak fuel on deck. But it's a cost you're willing to make because you can get to LA from New York in an hour and a half. Right. It's a classic. You know, so nobody's complaining about the leak on deck, you know, as they're filling it up and it's like coming out the sides, because look what I can do.
But that's how our entire economy works.
Right. That's exactly right.
It's like it has to be in motion like a freaking shark or an SR-71
So
sharks can't breathe unless they're moving. They have to have water moving over their gills constantly.
right.
The minute that some catastrophe happens that stops that movement, everything falls apart. And so that's what we saw during COVID. So just a few more. Marriage, obviously, absolutely as an institution, being utterly destroyed. No-fault divorce in 1969 starts it off. Now, it's still for decades now. Like, I think it's a little under half of all first marriages end in divorce, and an overwhelming number of second marriages do. And women who used to find their security within family now file 70 to 80% of divorces.
Amazing.
And so it's like they don't need guys anymore to take care of themselves. And so they're in a position where they can just file.
I mean, that's the through line of our generation, right? The mantra is, I don't need a man, right?
Mm-hmm. A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle.
Yeah. Right. Jinx.
Thanks, Gloria Steinem.
Yeah. But you can see how we've created that world that she projected. It makes me kind of think, are we all just rent seekers?
How do you mean?
In other words, like rent seeking is the idea you sort of have a parasitic relationship, just a quick definition, the act of trying to increase one's wealth by manipulating public policy or economic conditions without creating any new wealth or societal value. So this prosperity that we talk about, you quoted the number, and I know, JBP was big on this number, but, we've created all kinds of wealth and all of this prosperity, but we pretended that we've done so without cost. Right. And so it's such an interesting, so the fragility of that prosperity creation seems, from my vantage point right now, as we're having this conversation, to be just one big, massive Potemkin village, this massive thing that's built on a kind of lie that can really work if you're on that upward arc. I mean, it's awesome. I'm sure, invest $100,000 and turn it into $1 million. Like, that's amazing. That's great. Right. I just beat the house. But like, what happens when that thing just, levels off or, God forbid, slightly goes down? It's, Potemkin Village, House of Cards, rent seeking. It's really hard to see, and look, we've seen this even in something as trivial as like podcast land. COVID was like this incredible opportunity for podcasters to develop an audience because everybody's stuck at home watching YouTube, and you get ad deals and you get all these kinds of things, and it's all great on that up and up. But now what?
Right.
God, it's so interesting.
Everybody's chasing a buck. I know. I was just watching a guy on Rogan last night. I really liked him. He does some kind of like strange mysteries podcast or whatever. But he's like, he was a Navy SEAL. He's like, I've never made real money in my life. And he's like, I was living off my pension, barely had enough. I love telling these stories. I tried all these things, because, I'm listening to guys like Gary Vaynerchuk saying you just got to post content every day and all this stuff. He's like, nothing worked. And he's like, then I was on a Great Wolf Lodge with my family. I posted this story on TikTok and I did it a certain way. And we went to the pool, whatever. He's like, I came back a few hours later and I had millions of views.
Boom. Yeah.
He's like, a year later, I'm getting a $60 million ad deal. I'm making $20,000 an episode. And he's like, it just came out of nowhere. And what does that do to people too?
Right. Because you feel like you've just printed money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You just hit Control P and
then you're like, how do I sustain it? Like, it's one thing to get it, but the first thing I think whenever I hear that is, how do you sustain it? What are the trade-offs? What are the costs? Like, how much pressure increases on you that you have to keep doing this stuff? We talked about Candace Owens. Like, why is she doing what she's doing? Because she's doing a true crime podcast that makes a ton of money. And so, but I mean, to finish out the marriage category, I think the other thing that we did, and this goes back to Harrington and the pill and everything else, is the minute that we divorced marriage as a social institution from being a unit wherein children have the best chance to be conceived and raised to become future citizens, which is the whole reason government has any interest in marriage at all, it becomes a contract governing a romantic relationship between any two people or more now. It stops being an institution that is sacred because it's like, this is where children fare the best, right? And now it's just, we're both in a contract and either one of us can nullify it at any time and you have no Like
recourse.
you can unilaterally be the one who's like, nah, I'm not into this anymore. And it's done. It's not a covenant. It's not anything lasting. It's a completely mutable thing.
Right. And yes, you can elect to be part of a community that professes to have those kind of solid, foundations, some sense of the sacred, but it's just a mod. It's just after the fact, because everybody knows that you can just decide to be otherwise.
So where else is reality breaking? Got a few left. Parenthood, very clearly, ties in with marriage, ties in with, understanding what you have to do to, like, what do you do if your kid, wants to be trans or whatever? Like, there's all this stuff that's broken down. In Parenthood, there's education. Clearly, I mean, you talk about this all the time, post-literacy, competing with screens, trying to get kids to read old books, trying to get them to understand things that don't have immediate utilitarian value. We used to know what education was for. Now it's just another piece of the utilitarian content mill or labor mill, whatever it is. It's all about getting to the next thing to get to the money, to your rent seeker point.
Right.
You might want to riff on that one for a second.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, so I think about the conception of education as job training, right? And when you poke around enough with most people will admit to you that the value they see in education is contractual, right? I study X and Y so that I can yield, this result. And, it's not about wisdom. It's not about cultivation of the soul. It's not about any of these sort of seemingly romantic things that I believe in. But it's, look, I'm being responsible. I'm being, practical. I'm being all of these sorts of things. And it makes me think, and of course, one of the great, cheerleading points that the tech bros will make about education is that, oh, well, this just solves the problem of education. We can just stick a kid in front of a relatively simple artificially intelligent machine, and we can just sort of educate our kids that way. And so that solves the financial problem. It solves all kinds of problems. You don't have to pay those rent-seeking teachers or anything like that. And it makes me think that, to your theme of singularity, it's almost like the LLMs are the perfect model for what we all really think and what we all really believe. And so as we hurtle headlong into this promised singularity, whether we want it or not, there's a kind of logic that's being played out that will, in fact, render humans superfluous. If you have any kind of concept of a human as being anything more than a flesh robot. And I find that chilling, I have to say, brother.
I have some contrary thoughts on that, but I want to save them.
Okay, that's fine.
So the last couple of things, public trust. We've talked about this a lot, but I mean, you and I grew up in a world where, like, we got the news from certain limited sources. We trusted it. I think this goes back to the idea that we were discussing early in the show about how do you see the mechanisms underneath the hockey game, right? It's like we were trained growing up to trust the experts, trust your priest, trust your doctor, trust your, local newsman, whatever it was. We took in a lot of this stuff uncritically. Our parents took it in much more, but they raised us. And so we got that. We're Gen X, and Gen X is where the real modern cynicism begins.
Yeah.
Because you start to see the cracks in the machine.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I grew up, that's how it was, and I think about this all the time in terms of of like the sex abuse crisis in the church.
Totally.
So much of that happened because parents were like, don't ever speak badly of a priest.
Right.
Like, it's that kind of thing. Like, why does everybody make fun of boomers in the way that they watch cable news? Well, they watch it that way because they were watching Tom Brokaw and Dan Rather and Peter Jenkins and all these guys, Walter Cronkite, you know, and they were trusted figures who you welcomed into your home under the auspices of this new invention of television.
Well, and I'll take it even further. I mean, think about the public trust we have in the dollar. A dollar is a dollar is a dollar. Only we know, because we're living through a time of, I don't know if it's technically hyperinflation, but man,
it's definitely inflation.
Things cost a lot, as we all know, and it's because they just printed a bunch of fake money. Like,
well, you know, the
money's
euro kind of hides it a little bit, but when I was in Austria, it was 1999, and the European Union was, you know, still a gleam in its mother's eye.
Yeah.
It hadn't come to pass yet. They were discussing it. And so every country I went to, I had to wait till I got there, watch the exchange rates, and they would fluctuate massively day to day. And when you start realizing, wow, like currency is so unstable.
Yeah.
Like if I bought lira at the beginning of the week, it's worth 20% less than it is on Friday, you know, and I'm in Italy for a week. Man, I wish I'd waited because I could have gotten a better deal. You know, I could have bought more with it.
Right. And I mean, this is how George Soros made his money.
He's a Forex guy.
Yeah. He basically overnight depressed, I think, the British sterling pound, made billions of dollars.
I thought that was Scott Bessent who did that. Everybody gives him credit for it.
No, but Soros did it too. I mean, he's playing the currency market, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, even our concepts of, like, I remember when we were a kid, like, you know, you'd sort of take a quarter, you like bite a quarter, you know, it's like.
It's from the old gold coin days where the gold was soft.
Right. So, you know, but it's like, well, you know, if I could test it, you know, if it bends, then it's real. But, you know, our money, and of course when we were kids, we dealt with paper money. Now I mean, how often do you use cash, Steve? I mean, seriously.
Only when I go to my barber who requires it.
Yeah. Right. Because cash is like, even the abstraction of paper money. I mean, you know, back in the day, back before this, before the 70s, you could take your dollar bill and you could go to the treasury and get $1 worth of gold. I mean, now, again, you could say, well, what is gold? Okay, fine. You know, you could sort of play those games. But again, the sense that the money was mean.
An innate ontological scarcity of a material on this planet where there's only so much of it. And it's shiny and you can attach value to it.
Right.
Like that's how that works. It's about scarcity. You eliminate scarcity, you eliminate, you know, value relationships, et cetera.
Right. So when everybody got their checks during COVID, we were like, yay, you know, a couple of $1,000, I can, you know, yay. But no, the $2,000 that you got mean that the $2,000 I have now is probably worth like $1,500.
It's like a credit card advance, you know?
Yeah.
You're paying a lot of interest on it. And so the last thing that I want to add here that I actually didn't have on my list is biology itself. Just a few weeks ago, they created a completely synthetic cell in a lab that can like function like a cell. I believe it can divide. If it can't, it will be able to do so soon.
Right.
Kale's just going to take his headphones off and throw them down and walk away.
I'm just done now. I'm just done.
You know, but you look at things like that. You look at, you know, I actually think that they're doing incredible things. I could probably use it, but like this GLP class drugs that suddenly weight loss and hormone regulation are happening, you know, at a scale that we've never seen before. We don't know what the long-term costs are, but a lot of people have had phenomenal results. It does give me pause.
Me too.
I worried about it for years. And as somebody who's, you know, tried and failed to lose weight constantly over the years, like I know that hormones have a huge role to play in that. And
a poisoned food supply. I think food is another thing we could add to the list. I think the whole Maha movement, you know, make of it what you will, but I think there's this sense that even our food is Frankenfood. Even our food is made up, right? I'd add to the list, if I could add one, language. Language itself has dissolved in front of our eyes.
Dead ass? No cap?
No cap. No, I think slang is actually generative. I don't mean it like that. I mean,
it can be, but it gets a little bit.
No,
much.
I know it gets ridiculous. No, but I'm basically and broadly, I'm a fan of slang because I think it points to the creative possibilities of language, right? So that we can say no cap, we can say these ridiculous things and like meaning is transmitted.
Irregardless, meaning is transmitted.
No. Right. But I mean, look, I was in graduate school in the 90s. This was like the heyday of the deconstruction movement, or actually it was the dying embers of that movement. But even language itself is infinitely deferred. And so meaning ultimately is not conveyed even in language itself. Right. So, now what Dante would say, right, is what we have in essence done is that if you go through all of the things, right, we've destroyed language, we've destroyed money, we've destroyed the family, we've destroyed all of these things. All of those have to be real if you are going to create an actual community.
When I use a word, Humpty Dumpty said, in a rather scornful tone, it means just what I choose it to mean, neither more nor less.
Nor less.
The question is, said Alice, whether you can make words mean so many different things. The question is, said Humpty Dumpty, which is to be master? That is all.
Power. That's brilliant. I had never made that connection. That is absolutely brilliant. I mean, basically, that's the argument of deconstruction.
Yes.
Right. And so therefore what happens right after deconstruction are the new historicist and the post-structuralist and the postmodernist, which are part of them too. Right. But basically that, there is no such thing as meaning. There is no such thing as reality. Therefore it's power.
I mean, woke is downstream of critical theory, which is downstream of postmodernism. Like, it's a sales funnel of stupidity.
That's right.
That just keeps narrowing as it goes down.
But it's powerful because if you can manipulate language, if you can manipulate money, if you can manipulate biology, you are in control.
But they are also manipulating meaning itself.
Yeah, itself, right.
Creating these ideas of structural racism and all this kind of stuff. And it doesn't matter if it's true. I mean, that's the thing about critical theory is truth doesn't matter. It's about power structures embedded throughout society and how they can be upended for your advantage.
Right. And so, oh man, that's good. I mean, so help me out. We've laid out a charcuterie board of pseudo realities.
Yes.
How are you connecting this to your conception of the singularity? Because it's
because the rules have shifted under all of these things in such a way that our relationship with reality has changed. We talked about this some on the last episode. I think COVID did, like the COVID debacle, the entire thing around it, no matter what side of it you wound up on, whether you called it a pandemic, whether you called it a hoax, whether you believe the vax saved lives, whether you believe it didn't, what it did is shatter our ability as a society to get on the same page about a shared understanding of reality. We can no longer say dispositively, this is what happened. Right. And then we're like, we've all looked at the evidence. It's all true. The evidence just goes in a million different directions and nobody knows which thing is right and which thing isn't. And it really just comes down to vibes at this point.
Right. Because, with the regrettable, mantra, spell, if you will, of trust the science, right? The problem with that, and there are many problems with that, but the problem with that is that they use something that should be a part of a robust sense-making apparatus. They weaponized it against reality itself. And again, we're looking at the sort of the epiphenomena of that, right?
And so you wind up with people who have moral certitude about any number of things. They are so confident. And when you say, okay, show your work, they can't. I mean, this was the whole Candace debate and everything that she does. Right. This is Tucker saying, I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. It's all true.
It's all true.
And it's like, okay, how do you know that it's true? Well, he'll never take that step, or we'll take that step, but we'll be like, Dr. Schmuckenfuck over here, said this. And it's like, okay, but who's Dr. Schmuckenfuck? And like, why is he credible more than the guy who's, heading up the National Institutes of Health or whatever?
Right.
Like, it's expert against expert.
These are peer-reviewed studies.
Yeah, and then it's like, what is peer review? I mean, Eric Weinstein is taking apart peer review. And so it's like, you just peel back layer after layer and you're good. It's Scooby-Doo. It's like, you want to pull off the mask so the guy can say, I would have gotten away with it if you weren't for you meddling kids. But every mask just reveals another mask.
Another mask, yeah.
And so everybody has really, really super strong opinions about this. And it's actually pushed me to a position where I'm like, I don't really want to have a strong opinion about anything that I'm not like actually certain of.
Yeah.
I will entertain theories across the board.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so all of this is facilitated by technology. This is all post-industrial as much as it is post-enlightenment.
Right.
So the rules of reality are broken, and it's like, it's Lovecraftian in that sense. I mean, the whole idea behind cosmic horror is not just that the monster is scary, it's that nothing in reality works the way you thought it did. Right? And I think, and I'm still slogging through it because it's gotten tough at the end here, but I think this is what Pasulka is getting at in the others.
I do too.
Is the singularity through just this like maceration of everything we thought we knew about ourselves through our merging with technology. And a thought struck me this morning that like these constantly hyped releases of AI, they feel a lot like, disclosure's coming any day about UAPs and NHIs.
Right.
It's that same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, and there is really something going on there. Like the AI models are actually coming and they're actually getting better and they're actually doing more things, but there's all this secret shit going on and we don't really know what's happening behind the scenes. And I didn't get to finish reading that timepiece about OpenAI, but Sam Altman is the most Machiavellian mother effer I have ever seen. Yeah. Like that guy sets off something preternatural in me.
It's primal, man.
And he is so good at turning things to his advantage. The second Anthropic got too big for their britches and screwed up with the government, he came in and swooped up.
Yeah.
We'll do the government contract. We got a way to make it work. Now, he's the one positioning himself to be the, hey, let's slow down with AI. It's getting out of hand. Because he's recognized that's what the people want. They want us to chill a little bit. And so Anthropic's out there going crazy. Their marketing strategy seems to be our shit's going to ruin the world, but we're not going to stop making it. Right? Like that's what they say all the time.
No, it's crazy.
And so Sam's like, hey, I'm thinking we spread ourselves too thin. We're going to narrow down. We're going to slow down. We're going to take our time. And it's like, he knows what you want to hear. And so that's what he's going to tell you. But he's got something brewing in the basement that's like, the AI version of Sauron. He does. And
I do. It's like I feel it in my bones, man. Like I feel it in my bones. I think those are real. I think my bones are real. There's this incredible scene in C.S. Lewis's That Hideous Strength, in which this is deep into the novel, and it's sort of co-protagonists, which they're a married couple, which is interesting, especially apropos to our earlier conversation about all these parts of reality that are being stripped or destroyed, or a chisel is a sledgehammer is being taken to the foundations of all of these things, and they're trying to break Mark. Mark is the co-protagonist, and he's sort of been conscripted into this organization called the National Institute for Controlled Experiments. I think that's Controlled Experiments. Nice, the NICE. And they're about to let him in on the secret of secrets. But before they have to strip him of all of his remaining ties to what you and I would call reality. And so they put him in this, it's called the room of objectivity. And they
I haven't
sit
read
him
this
in
book in so long. I don't remember all this.
No, it's great. So they sit him in this room. And so everything is like slightly off. all the circles. There's no discernible pattern. Just when you think there's a pattern in the size of the circles or the placement of the circles, it's like a little bit off. Like, you know, the door at the end of the room is like slightly cantered off to one side. So everything is designed to rob you of your mental capacity to grok pattern, right? And you know, pattern recognition is like it's what we do, right? And of course, it's also what LLMs do, interestingly enough, right? But all of this is designed to strip your ability to, you know, understand a kind of terra firma reality.
So
And
basically cities.
Yeah.
Because that thing that you said in
Yeah.
the beginning of, oh, I'm sure, you know, abortion in Maine, and, you know, where are the most liberal places in the country? Typically, they are where the biggest cities are.
Yeah. And
Because
therefore the most wealth.
Cities disconnect us from reality.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
like cities. Like, I really like cities.
Yeah.
Because of the amenities that they afford and things like that. But I live almost in downtown Raleigh.
Yeah.
You know, you've been to my place
Yep.
now. You've
Yeah,
seen. But it's like I drive 20 minutes and I'm out in the country, and it is the only time that I feel like I'm in the real world.
I know you always tell me that too. You're like, well, I took a long delivery. I just kind of had to because I need to get out and like see real things.
Yeah,
you know?
like the old trees and the tobacco fields and the old, you know, the barns that have been there since the 1800s. I mean, it's like, you know, North Carolina is an old state.
Yeah.
You know, NC State or NC Chapel Hill is UNC Chapel Hill is the oldest state university in America. It was founded in the 1780s.
Wow.
You know, like there's a lot of old stuff here, and so you just get outside of the calculated artifice of the urban environment, and you are in a world that now you have to interact with the land and with the bugs and with the animals and and it's like it's not this hyper controlled moon base environment. The more disconnected we get from real things, the more easily I think our minds are moved into surreal ideas.
Right, because the mind can sort of occupy a terrain unto itself, right, in a way that a mind can't occupy a terrain unto itself out in the woods, right? You have to be acutely conscious of the woods, or, you know, the river or the ocean or, you know, any of these kinds of things.
Just go somewhere where there's no cell signal and see what it does to you.
Right.
It changes your entire day.
Yeah.
Like I want to underscore that because it sounds like a throwaway observation.
It's not.
But
no.
go to where there's no signal and you can't get online, and suddenly you have to put that sucker down and breathe the air and look around and listen to what you hear and feel the temperature, and like it's a different. Suddenly you're back in your body. You got jacked out of the matrix. And it happened abruptly, so you really notice it.
Yeah.
And you're holding your phone up, you know, trying to get signal.
Get a signal. Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the vague posting a little bit, because I want us to get back to this sort of frontier thing. And of course, I'm not talking about the natural frontier, which you've just talked about.
Right.
But the frontier as regards the AI labs and, you know, the promises, the vague hints that we are hurtling towards something. I mean, some sort of inflection point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the vague posting is weird. I actually asked Grok, you know, what are the big AI news stories this week? And they were all companies I haven't heard of, like Chinese companies. Like we've seen the hype accounts saying stuff's coming, right? But it hasn't dropped yet. And I don't know what we're waiting for. I mean, it looks like OpenAI is doing a flat out rebrand, which is interesting. They're moving away from ChatGPT as their flagstone product, according to that Time article.
Wow.
They're leaning a lot more on Codex because it's the direct competitor to Claude Work, and then they're also like doing Astra, which is the thing that broke out and got into Hugging Face.
Oh, so chat's going to be for the plebs like us. and then they're going to do these other things. Like, what
well,
is
so
your
the battle
sense of
they're
that?
saying now, the battle is really over alignment, right? I mean, we had an episode, I think, entitled "Are You Being Aligned?"
We did.
It's
I was in Oxford. I remember.
alignment is it's about trying to get the
it's a term,
AIs to do the things that are in the human's best interest.
Yeah, it's a term of art, isn't it?
It really
alignment.
Is. By the way, speaking of terms of art, I just wanted to throw this out because this was another little boop that popped into my head today.
Yep.
I know that we've talked about this before, but really think about the name Anthropic, because Anthropic was a spin-off from OpenAI. It was defectors from OpenAI that started Anthropic. What does the word anthropic mean? The textbook definition.
Anthropoi means man, doesn't it?
Right. So literally from the dictionary, the word anthropic means of or relating to human beings or the period of their existence on Earth. Why, in God's name, is an AI company making things that are replacing us called Anthropic? Like, that is not an accidental turn of phrase.
Made by a man called Dario Amodei, lover of God.
Yeah,
Amodei.
and his obsession with effective altruism, which altruism is never effective. It is an end in itself. So there's just a lot of weird spell casting going on here.
For real, it's like, man,
it's Soylent Green, man. Like, you just call it Soylent Green.
Right. I mean, sometimes it really does kind of feel like you're in a novel or something.
Yeah. Like, here is this thing, and we're going to say that it's about people and their existence on Earth, and it's going to replace you. It's going to take away your job. It's going to take away reality as you know it. We're going to put you into some kind of weird utopian walled garden or dystopian. We're not sure. We're going to promise you one, but the other could happen. But remember, we're anthropic. We're anthropocentric.
Well, irony doesn't quite do it justice, does it?
No, it's sabotage. It is linguistic sabotage.
Right.
It is literally saying, this is not the thing you think it is.
Well, and also OpenAI.
Right. And it's closed.
Open? It's closed.
That's Elon's whole argument.
Does X mark the spot?
Grok at least is literally, a term of art that's about trying to understand something. It's at least an appropriate term. I think it comes from Heinlein, from like Stranger in a Strange Land or something like that. But people have been using the word, I don't grok that, since the early days of blogging, at the very least. That was where I came across it. I don't grok that,
No, that's how and that's what I thought that was the joke, right? When you said you were grokking something, it kind of meant you were understanding something.
Right.
And
but that's kind of what he's trying to do with it, according to him, is to make it maximally truth-seeking. It wants to know what's true.
All right. So
and he thinks that's going to protect us.
Yeah. No, I get it. What about Gemini? It's a zodiac constellation.
It's the twin, right?
Yeah, Castor and Pollux.
So is the idea that it's our digital twin? Like, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know what the thinking is behind it.
I think so. Again, we're playing with language right now, but it's like, look, this is one of the things I teach the kids, when we're doing a story or a poem or what have you, is like every word is a choice, right? A choice made by a poet to, elicit some kind of reaction from the audience. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those choices are unconscious and sometimes those choices are conscious, but it's always as a result of a choice. And so when you name a company, look, how long did we take to name Monitoring the Situation?
Oh my gosh. I'm obsessive about names that signify the thing.
Right. And, Dickens was obsessive about this. Novelists are obsessive about this. All artists are obsessive about being intentional. And so even if these companies were named playfully or what, like, there's a weird kind of meaning, intended or not, in these weird names. Don't know what to do with that. It's like.
So what are you feeling around the vague posting? Because it's been really on your mind, but you haven't really told me what about it is getting to you.
So on my road trip home, the first leg I was with my brother Mark, had a great time. We basically talked nonstop. It was pretty awesome. So by the time I showed up at your place, I had been driving for 15 hours, basically on a nonstop conversation with Mark.
That was a long one. You went from Baton Rouge to Raleigh.
To Raleigh,
right?
yeah. And Mark talks as much as I do. And Mark is a smart guy, extremely well read. He reads widely and broadly, deeply. And so we just had some great conversations. Then we connect with you. Those were some great birria tacos, by the way.
Yeah, they were.
They were very good. I like
birria. You have to pronounce the birria.
Birria. I woofed it down like in 30 seconds. It was amazing. And then, you and I stayed up, way past my bedtime.
Past your bedtime, yeah.
I haven't seen 2 a.m. since the last time I woke up at 2 a.m. to go do something, right? That's
welcome to my natural circadian rhythm.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was there. So anyway, where was I going with this? So I leave your house. We go to see, go to Mark's house, spend the night there. And then the last part of the trip, which is about 8 hours or so, was by myself. And that's the least fun portion of the drive because you're driving up the 95 corridor, right?
Yeah.
And so you're hitting all of the
traffic everywhere. 95
is
is just cursed no matter where you are.
So I left Mark's house. He lives in Virginia. I left Mark's house at like 4 a.m. because I needed to get out of the Beltway before it heats up.
And through New York City, right?
Right. And then I needed to time New York in such a way that I didn't hit early morning traffic, but also not late morning traffic. So anyway, did it. I timed it really well. It worked out well. So anyway, I listened to like a 3.5 hour long AI roundtable hosted by Chris Williamson of Modern
I listened to that one too. That was really good.
Yeah, I think you tipped my hat to it.
I think we played some clips of it on the last show.
Yeah, right.
The great thing about being old farts is we don't remember what we talked about last time.
Incredible.
And so we just repeat ourselves.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure everyone, an hour and 45 minutes in is really appreciating my lack of memory. Anyway, I wound up listening to the whole conversation and it was very good. I again recommend everybody listen to it. And none of these are like AI doomers, right? None of the people, they're all in it, and so it was interesting to hear people who were in it and kind of their takes on things and their concerns, and they were all very reasonable, and I really appreciated all of the participants. But one of the guys was basically saying, like, look, it's here.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to continue to chase the frontier, toward AGI, toward ASI. But his whole take was like, it's here. Now we've got to figure out what to do with this thing that we've summoned. And his
that guy was Zach Cass, by the way.
Yeah. So Zach's take on it was like, look, the longer I'm in the AI space, the longer I immerse myself in it, the more I want to get away from it and spend time on those things that matter to me. And for him, it was his wife and his child. So that was a kind of an interesting take.
Yeah. Because he flat out said, the more time that I work on AI, the less time I want it in my day-to-day life.
In my day-to-day life.
But I'm glad it exists, and I want to use it to automate away the things that keep me from doing what's really important.
This, of course, dovetails. So his predictions, his vibe sense is played out just today with OpenAI's announcement of basically they're steering right into the anthropic space. With the AI agents and sort of fully automated, lifestyle.
But also
AI.
alignment. Like they're pushing the idea of alignment.
How so?
So, it was in the was in the timepiece, which we're going to have to link to. It's called, the title of the piece is Inside OpenAI's Reboot. And there's a quote here from Altman himself, and he says, look, I think there's this caricature of me, which is I don't care about AI safety, and I'm just trying to make revenue go up, and, just a YOLO CEO. Getting AI safety right is more important than any company's momentum. The piece goes on, the decision to slow down was a painful choice, executives say. Sure it was. But it may also have its benefits. If OpenAI can reclaim the mantle of the safety-first lab, it might bolster its image while forcing its main competitor to answer an uncomfortable question as it plans a blockbuster IPO. Will Anthropic keep racing while OpenAI waits? In an interview with Time earlier this year, Anthropic co-founder Jared Kaplan argued that unilateral restraint is futile when rivals are blazing ahead. It's a harder argument to make if OpenAI is deliberately holding back the run expected to produce its next large capability jump. This is a chess move, and it is brilliant.
Because
Sam does Aikido.
Yeah.
He figures out where the momentum is going, and he shifts it to his advantage. That's what he does. And he can pivot on a dime, and suddenly he's the AI safety guy. This is just a caricature. This breakneck development.
Because yesterday doesn't even exist. So even time, even our shared sense of the reality of time no longer bears.
OpenAI has been getting the crap kicked out of it. They have faced lawsuit after lawsuit. They ended their partnership with Disney. They had the dude who worked for them who was worried about what was going on, who got murdered, and his parents think the company's involved. Like
with his DoorDash sitting right outside of his door,
they've had massive turnover from people who've only been there for a short amount of time, who are high-level people. Like the Instacart CEO joined them for like 8 months and then left. Sam Altman himself has been accused by his sister of sexual abuse. Like there's all this stuff that's gotten thrown at them, and he's Teflon. It just bounces off.
Well, I mean, and let's remember, this is part of Elon's engagement, narrative, that there was a push to kick Sam Altman out of OpenAI, and he won.
He won,
and Bro won. Yeah,
which is crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
and now there's this rumor that Ilyas Sutskever, who has this startup, and that they've developed some new kind of mysterious AI. I'm just grabbing the first image I see. The first story I see. This is some Israeli website because there's Hebrew at the bottom, but it says that let's see, SSI could be set to unveil a revolutionary language model. This was posted 3 hours ago. Over the past 2 years, Sutskever, an Israeli who graduated from Open University, has raised $7 billion for his company Safe Superintelligence, which will offer a language model that rival giants like Anthropic's Claude Fable and OpenAI's GPT. He's hired over 50 employees. So it's this mysterious thing that the hype guys are really excited about, but I don't know what it is about it that's supposed to be better. It's something different. It says to solve complex problems, the models think longer, but the structure of their brain, the model's weights, which determine how it will respond to a question, does not change. SSI's apparent solution, on the other hand, allows models' weights to be updated in real time while reading a document. So this goes back to what we talked about how AI doesn't learn from interactions. And so it can never really be self-aware or intelligent because it can't learn from experience. It can only learn in a training environment where it's opened up to that, and the rest of the time it's locked down like the little tab on the old VCR tapes,
Remember that? Yeah, it's funny. That's funny. So, okay. Going meta here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So we got all this stuff out here, and you really have to treat these news stories as, I really think you have to see it as consciousness flooding, right? I mean, there's some real things in this piece, in these pieces that you read, the Time piece, this piece you just read, like they're real things that are being said, but they're like dressed up in, like, is it a press release? Is it a hard news story? Is it hype? Is it sales? Is it truth telling? Like, you don't really kind of know, but there's all this stuff being sort of, like, it's available. Like, you and I don't have any special powers. We just have the internet. We can kind of look at all these things that are out there. And I would imagine that, I think of like my friends who are not sad monitors of the situation. And they're just sort of like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, something's happening. Like, I don't know. Hey, honey, can you pick up the orange juice on the way home?
Right. Hey, the new season of Reacher is out.
Right. Oh, I heard Widow's Bay is really good. Should we go watch that? I mean, and again, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. No, like judgment from me.
We do that too.
Right.
But there's a threshold where we're like, all right, I got to stop.
Right.
And we have context. Like, I don't know if you know this, but like, I just read that thing about Ilya and SSI. Ilya was a defector after the failed coup against Sam Altman from OpenAI. I don't know which side of that conflict he was on.
Right.
I was under the impression he was against Sam,
mm-hmm.
But who knows? I mean, it's like, it's drama nested within drama.
So if we think of this like a video game, you've got all these player characters that are, being operated, right? You're trying to win the game. It's like some big Smash Brothers melee situation. And, new characters just keep popping up, and like new stories and like different powers and all this sort of stuff. And we're all sort of kind of watching this, like, I don't know, like we're watching like a WWE cage match with a bunch of, popular characters that are kind of showing up and doing their thing. But what are they doing? Like, what are they actually doing?
I don't know. I wish that there was like a James O'Keefe who could put on sunglasses and a mustache and a fake nose.
And be vaguely gay.
And ply these guys with drinks and be like, what are you really scared about in the work that you're doing? I want those stories to come out. I want the real scoop and not the kayfabe.
Right, because that's that. Thank you. You just, I've been trying to figure this out. But it's like the news itself is kayfabe about, and especially about these labs, especially these AI labs. So is the vague posting, are they just like hype guys who are just like, oh yeah, it's going to be great, it's going to be awesome. And then like, is it a dud? But then you can clearly see that these AIs are powerful. People are doing kind of incredible things with them. So it's like, it's not exactly nothing. But like, what are they actually going to do? Right? What are they summoning? I think both of us have a nagging sense that part of what they're summoning is our replacement.
They've used that language themselves, right?
No. Oh, good.
Give me a sec. Go on your theme and I'm going to find the quote.
In other words, okay, like I'm Kale Zeldin and I teach school. Like, am I going to be replaced, or am I going to be some sort of strange boutique item that, despite the fact that we have sort of super slick, fast digital versions, people will still pay for the handcrafted, artisanal. Like, am I an artisanal figure now?
Yes.
In the world?
Yes, I think so. I think that I have become increasingly convinced of that fact. And it's why, I've talked about this. It's why I'm leaning into, reading more poetry, writing more lyrically, like writing from human experience, because I could write essays about things, like I always did, for, a decade and a half.
Yeah.
but I could have an AI do the same freaking essay, train it to do my voice, and it's going to give you the same facts and the same information and the same analysis. But what it can't do is tell you what it felt like after, so much time in isolation, to spend 2 days with my kids, 2 days with my parents, 1 day with you, dinner with your brother who I met. Like, I had a week full of human embodied experience. And what did that do to me? And then go back to flatline, right? And how did that make me feel? Or like these little interactions in the grocery stores that I have, and the way that I talk about people and their idiosyncrasies, like, they can imitate that, but they can't generate it. And so, to my mind, the only place we can really take refuge is in those human things. The difference between an AI teaching your kids and you teaching your kids is you love the subject matter. It can see probably the same patterns that you do, but it may not make those connections in the same way that you would. If you point it out, it'll be like, oh yeah, actually that's really good. So maybe an educator like you could train an AI to educate in a way that is very, very, I don't know what the right word is, but like where you see the constellation of all the different things and you present them in a way that you want to engender a kind of love in the kids. Like, you could train one to do it, but it won't do the thing that you did. It won't do the thing we do on the show all the time where we're like, Eureka, like another connection just got formed. Like, it doesn't do that. It references an existing data set. It is fundamentally non-generative, which is interesting because we were talking about non-generative stuff last episode in a different context. AI is, even generative AI, to an extent, it is synthetic in the sense of it synthesizes. It is non-generative.
So it's always historical in an interesting kind of way. It's always capturing something from the past, something that already is or
even
was.
If it's like 5 minutes ago, the past, it can only capture up to the present moment. It does not innovate. It can do innovative things through a combinatorial practice of looking at a bunch of stuff. Like, it can look at a bunch of existing chemical compounds, and it can come up with a novel compound because it can see the chemistry of all the different things at the same time in a way that we can't. Here's something new built from old parts. That's what it can do. I don't know, at least now, and I don't know if it ever will, have curiosity. Because really, that's what we have that it doesn't. Like, why does
wonder.
Reading,
wonder.
Yeah.
Curiosity as wonder.
Like, I can tell the AI, I want to do with my writing what Norman Rockwell did with his painting. And it can be like, oh, I get that. Yeah. And it can explain why. But it would never tell me, you're kind of doing with your writing what Norman Rockwell did with painting. Like, it doesn't make those connections.
Right. So right now, it requires you, the human subject, right, the human being, to play.
Right. And that's a great word, play. Like, it will not play on its own because it doesn't fundamentally have a desire to play.
There's a book I've been meaning to read forever, written by this Johann Huizinga, and it's called Homo Ludens. It means man the player.
Dr. Martin used to talk about.
Yeah, and I really need to do a dive into that. That culture arises from, the human sense of play, man, the player, Homo Ludens, along with, the wise man, Homo sapiens, and, the Homo faber, the maker, man, the maker.
Yeah.
But it is play that is the distinctly human, right? Because we can make makers, we can make intelligent, memory holders, but the play part is this significant cue. And so I wonder, part of your steering into poetry, for instance, is you kind of relearning how to revel in the sense of linguistic play.
100%.
That's what poetry is,
100%.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, and take it to a different place.
Mm-hmm.
It occurs to me as I'm listening to you say this that fundamentally the greatest indicator that a relationship is failing is that it loses its sense of play.
That's so
If
good.
there's no playfulness between lovers, there's no love.
Right.
Like love isn't always playful. It's often serious. It's often sorrowful. It's often, but if you can't play with one another, then it's dead.
It's funny. Dolly Parton died yesterday. And, we had this huge outpouring of sympathy and support online and everybody. And that's great. It's kind of cool to see in an interesting way. But as a result of her death, I was looking at some videos, last night and this morning, and there's a couple of great videos. As a kid, for me, the Dolly Parton song that I remember as a kid was the duet she does with Kenny Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the videos that I saw was the two of them. He starts off the song and then she comes on and he's surprised by her because she wasn't supposed to be there, and they start doing, and it's awesome. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, these are just like immensely talented singers. I mean, just rich voices, just incredible. But, but the song Islands in the Stream is about two lovers playing with one another. It's love is a sense of play. And of course they perfectly embody this sense of play. So just stay the stagecraft of two incredibly talented people who clearly love one another. They're buds, right?
Right.
And to watch them, sing a verse and then respond with a verse, and they're smiling and they're saying these little funny side comments as they're doing it. But what we revel in, what we marvel at is that sense of play, right? That this distinct thing that happens when two hyper talented people who are in their flow state doing their thing together. This is beautiful. It really is beautiful.
You had asked me to find the thing about summoning.
Yeah.
And I have summoned it.
Summoned it, yeah.
All right. So here's an excerpt. It was from a New Yorker article that already archived, but it was from April 6th of this year. There's a paragraph that says, in May, the administration rescinded Biden's export restrictions on AI technology. Sam Altman of OpenAI, and Trump traveled to the Saudi royal court to meet with bin Salman. Around the same time, the Saudis advertised the launch of a giant state-backed AI firm in the kingdom with billions to spend on international partnerships. Excuse me. About a week later, Altman laid out a plan for Stargate, which is a project you're not hearing anybody talking about anymore, which is interesting, to expand into the UAE. The company plans to build a data center campus in Abu Dhabi, which is 7 times larger than Central Park and consumes roughly as much electrical power as the city of Miami. Quote, the truth of this is we're building portals from which we're genuinely summoning aliens, a former OpenAI executive said.
What?
The portals currently exist in the United States and China, and Sam has added one in the Middle East. He went on, I think it's just wildly important to get how scary that should be. It's the most reckless thing that has been done.
So that's a story. It's out there, right?
Yeah. I commented on it at the time. Walter Kern went off on it. Why are they using that language?
Right. And maybe they're being cute, right? I mean, this is the frustrating thing about all of this stuff.
But it's not super cute.
Right.
They're using that language for a reason and they're repeating it. There is a sense in which they are not merely building something, they are summoning something forth because there are emergent behaviors. There are things that end up becoming larger than the sum of their parts. As I keep repeating, we are building strange gods.
So it makes me, I'm not mad at people. So I don't want this to sound like I'm mad at people, because I know everybody has a busy life and all this sort of stuff, but this stuff is just out there. And this dovetails into what I want to get into at the end of this conversation about Jesse Michaels and, Dylan Borland. But this stuff is out there. These guys are talking about portals. What if
aliens.
Right.
Again, we have been on this
since the beginning.
The dawn of all of this. that AI and aliens are inextricable in terms of what's happening to humanity and our epistemology. Like they are two parts of this same thing for reasons that we are excavating. We don't know why. We're just a dog on the hunt.
Right. Because, as you and I have joked before, but it's really true. Like, we're just like two guys with an internet connection who have a kind of penchant.
We're just asking questions. We're just asking questions.
Yeah. And I'll give you the big reveal next episode. Join my Patreon here. No,
Hint,
but I mean,
it's the Jews.
Right. Shake, 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 shake. Oh, look, magic 8 ball. Right. But with all seriousness, like, you and I are just like two guys who have an internet connection. We're kind of watching these things unfold. And like that story, which I remember you making a big deal out of it back when it came up, but I forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
But like portals, like Saudi Arabia. Oh, okay. Like what are we even doing? Right. I mean,
we are building portals from which we are genuinely summoning aliens. The genuinely is doing a lot of work in that sentence.
Yeah. Right. And you're just rereading the sentence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not paraphrasing it at all.
Right. Genuinely, that work, like you said, that word is doing a lot of work for you in that one. So this stuff is being talked about. It's out there, and it just kind of lands with a collective thud. I was in Florida last week. Before I went to go see my parents, I went to an old buddy of mine, one of my younger brothers, really good friends. It was his 50th birthday. So we went, they rented a beach house and people showed up, and I was there for not quite 2 days. And so, you're just sitting on the beach, drinking beer, hanging out, cooking good food. Just, it was great times. It was good. I really needed it. And, so this stuff comes up. AI, it comes up, and folks are just, and then I didn't bring it up. God is my witness, but the alien thing came up, and I'm just kind of like taking the temperature of the room. Like, I'm not leading on that I'm like a complete crazy person about this stuff, but fine. And just like kind of a big shoulder shrug, man. And these are like professional, successful guys, literally doctors and lawyers.
It's not moving the Dow, brother.
None.
No, but I mean, that's why. Like, it's not impacting we all have this sort of filter that is attuned to the things that directly affect our lives. There's an avalanche of bullshit coming our way every day. And anything that doesn't feel like it has proximate impact gets filtered out. It's like NORAD and their stupid filters on what was in our air, our skies over the US. And it's how they missed the Chinese weather balloon that had like a multi-1,000-pound payload. It wasn't a weather balloon, it was a spy balloon.
Yeah.
I said weather balloon, but it's a spy balloon. I mean, this thing, the reason they didn't shoot it down is because if it fell, it would have killed people. It was huge. But we had our filters turned up so that it was like missiles and airplanes and like other things.
Yeah.
And when they changed the sensitivity on the filter, all of a sudden they're like, oh, there's a bunch of crap in our skies that we weren't noticing because we had filtered above that level. And so like, it's like a sieve. It's like the small stuff falls through and the big stuff gets caught.
So,
and it feels small for now, but it's not going to feel small. I don't think it's going to stay small. So let's talk about something that you actually, you surprised me because I hadn't talked to you about this before the show, but you started talking about robots.
Yep.
At the beginning.
Yep.
So this is the next thing. And I think, we need to put this on the map. We need to put the pin in this.
People are very skeptical about robots. So this came up in Florida, right? And, because they were saying like, oh, what's the big deal? Like, whatever, I'm fine. They were kind of doing that, my kids are going to be fine. And, a robot can't, flip a burger or, they said something like that. I'm like, the hell they can't. So I would say that ignorance of AI, generally speaking, is even less the case than ignorance about robots.
Yeah. Yeah. And so robots are going to be the mechanism by which the AIs become embodied in the world. So this is a thing. And like, while we're not paying attention, the pace for robotic development is huge. Tesla has invested massive dollars into engineering a functional human hand for its bipedal robot, Optimus. It's the hardest engineering thing that they've had to do. They've had to create an entire supply chain for the robots. None of the parts exist off the shelf, but they're doing it. And Elon is convinced that within a few years, the robots will be building the robots. And so this is where you get this recursive thing. Then we had the World, I think it's called the World Robotic Games in Beijing that started just a few days ago.
3 days ago.
And, you know, the first things that we saw, well, that I saw coming out of it were these like catastrophic failures that everybody's laughing at, everybody's scoffing. They're coming for our jobs. Yeah, right. So let me play a couple of quick clips here. So the first one is this robot that is running super fast, and then he can't stop, and he crashes into the pad and like goes down in a shower of sparks. Yeah, these are going to take our jobs, right? There was another one very similar. This guy catches fire. Another one crashes next to him. Like, oh, isn't this pathetic? Like, these robots aren't ready for prime time.
Right. So it's so.
I'm trying to stop it. Hold on.
It's all right. What's so interesting to me about this, right? It's like those videos are doing exactly the opposite of what they should be doing. And I, saw you on X the other day, and you were like pulling your hair out, right? You were like, guys, you're paying attention to the joke, like you're paying attention to the what they can't do. Are you paying attention to what they can do?
Right. So, for example, here's a robot doing a long jump. It makes it 7.97 meters. So almost.
How long is that?
It's around 21 feet. I don't know. I mean,
around the world
generally I convert meters into yards.
Yeah.
This is Nate Bargatze as George Washington doing the metric versus the standard system. Nobody knows. But okay, so watch this. And what is most impressive to me about this video is not the jump. It is the robot's ability to stabilize itself after the momentum before crashing into a crowd of people. So watch this.
It looks fake. It looks fake in midair.
But look how it stopped.
I know.
It's crazy. And then,
by the way, that's 26 feet, by the way.
Here goes a robot breaking Usain Bolt's 100-meter dash record. So this is like, people are like, oh, it's a machine. Of course, it's a bipedal freaking robot that can now run faster than people. And it can be weapon mounted. So just think of that. Here are some robots playing tennis, which requires a massive amount of coordination. They're playing slow, but they're seeing the ball coming. They're anticipating the bounce. They're hitting it over the net without hitting it too hard.
They have these cool, like, behind the back shots. Watch this.
So remember, this is the worst these robots will ever be. I'm going to give you one more. This is Boston Dynamics. Everybody knows Boston Dynamics.
Yes.
Because they're in Massachusetts, but they created Spot the robot dog, which was the first like lovable robot that everybody, was into. If you Google Spot robot dog police or Spot robot dog military, if you do it on YouTube, police departments are using these all over the country now. They're like $100,000 a pop, and they go up from there.
Right.
But they send them into situations that are too dangerous to send officers into. In China, they have their own version of the robot dog. They're mounting assault rifles to the top of these things, and they're shooting. Like, and so, okay, those were the initial developments that we knew about Boston Dynamics. But then they created a humanoid robot called Atlas. Now watch what this thing can do. But in particular, if you really want to have like a fun, uncanny valley, like this would be a horrifying Terminator thing.
Yeah.
Watch the points of articulation on this thing. So it can spin its torso and its head all the way around when it's doing tasks. So it's totally reversible. So the guy asks it for a drink and it brings the whole fridge. This is like the head spins all the way around, the torso spins all the way around. You know, and these are just the humanoid robots. I don't have the video clip, but there's a Unitree robot that's like a dog on wheels, and that thing can go over all kinds of terrain. It can do flips. It can do all this stuff, right? So this is the next gold rush. There are already analysts talking about that, but the AIs have reached a point now where, as Zach said on the AI roundtable, like even if we don't develop them further, even if the frontier models don't go any further, you know, because compute's becoming more and more expensive and all this stuff, like they already are complete game changers. It's just a question of implementation, appropriate implementation. So then you take them and you put them in bodies and you use them to increase and develop the capability of these bodies and their agility and their speed and their energy efficiency and so on and so forth. And where do we wind up? I mean, the whole reason our intro to this show is the way that it is.
Right.
Is I incorporated robots into everyday life. It's very, you know, Jetsons, but it's like, but it's not, because this is really coming. You know, there are warehouses that Amazon has that are dark because the robots are just working in the dark.
They don't need light.
Yeah, they don't need light, so it allows them to save money. They just created a robot arm package sorter called Vulcan that has sensors in its hand. It can feel the package. It can tell things about the package because of the feedback sensors. Like this stuff is all happening in parallel. We've got a bunch of companies developing this stuff all at the same time. And like we're on the ground floor.
So as you said a minute ago, these are the worst that they will be right now. Mm-hmm. And we're gonna be able to say that tomorrow.
They're the Will Smith eating spaghetti of robots right now.
Okay, tell the audience what you mean by that.
I mean,
that's
there's
very
just this
Kale. That's very Kale Steve esoterica. So
okay, so there's this famous. It is the benchmark video that everybody uses. I don't have it to pull it up. But the benchmark video that everybody uses to talk about AI video generation is this video from a couple years, just 2 years ago, I think, of Will Smith eating spaghetti. Like that was the prompt, and his face is like morphing, and the spaghetti's falling everywhere, and he's like, you know, it was really ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then now, like they can make a video that is almost indistinguishable from Will Smith acting in a scene where he's eating spaghetti. So in just a couple years, that's how far it's come. They are iterating at an exponential rate. So when I say that these are the Will Smith eating spaghetti of robots, that's what I mean. Kale doesn't like this.
Well, no, I mean, of course not, you know, but I'm trying to really be honest about it too, right? Because, you know, look, we all have our temperaments and we all have our proclivities. I think if you've watched enough hours of the two of us monitoring the situation, you know where my heart goes to with these kinds of things. But I've seen too many dystopian movies to pretend like there's no chance that this could be bad. You know what I mean? It's like, I suppose I'd love to have a C-3PO or even an R2-D2, or hell, let's just have them together. But there's something visceral that happens to me when I see those robots running 100 yards, jumping, you know, just a few clicks shy of the world record, the human world record in the long jump, and then envisioning them with guns in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
you could just give them knife hands. They don't even need guns.
Right. Right. Because like what? Oh, I have a shot. I mean,
and in the Ukraine war, they're starting to use robots, and the robots and the drones are doing a lot of the fighting now.
Wow.
Like we're already starting to kind of see, the opening act of Cyberdyne Systems here.
Okay. Yeah. So that was the movie that I didn't want to invoke because I feel like it's so on brand for me.
And it's cliche.
But like I did see Terminator 1, 2, 3, and 4 more than once, all of them. I like those movies. But again, I have this kind of visceral reaction to them. Now, what is interesting to me about the Terminator movies, and this does connect with the Jesse Michaels shtick, that if you remember in Terminator 2, it's revealed that the seeding of Cyberdyne, the seeding of Skynet was them reverse engineering the remnants of the original Terminator robot from the first movie. And so this retrieval of high tech, better than we know tech, is received by a company, they reverse engineer their way into the next iteration.
That was a time loop chicken and the egg thing, though, right? Was that how they played that?
Yeah, that's how they played that. But
yeah, this could be too.
But this could be too, right? Like, in other words, like we have currently known tech that we kind of don't know how it works. What if all this UAP, UFO download stuff is us getting super tech from a different dimension, from a different time? I'm sorry, I that's where my mind goes, Steve. A
lot of people talk about it. I mean, it's not my preferred theory, but a lot of people absolutely think that that could be, a plausible thing. That it's not aliens or extra dimensional beings, it's us from the future in some way, but nobody knows.
But again, it actually doesn't matter for this conversation. It doesn't matter about where it's coming from, but the future from what I can gather, the future is here, and it's a weird thing to like say that literally.
No, William Gibson had it right. The future is here. It's just not evenly distributed
right.
yet.
That's right. And
so let's talk about Dylan.
Yeah. So, look, you and I are big Jesse Michaels fans. He runs the podcast called American Alchemy, which is a great name, by the way.
Yeah, actually, he was just on Joe Rogan again yesterday, and Rogan.
I haven't seen it yet.
I started watching it. I didn't get to finish it, but Rogan just flat out said, he's like, you are the best podcaster in the UFO space, bar none.
Yeah, I think that's true. You would agree.
I agree.
Yes?
I agree. Yeah. I've been watching him since he was doing it out of his living room, and he's just, he's so freaking smart.
Yeah, he's really smart.
And he's personable, and he's balanced. Like, he'll listen to anybody. It doesn't mean he's going to believe everything that they have to say.
And he's
doing the same thing that we're doing, where he's like, I want to get to the information, but he has access to the people who have it, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And he seems like a really good guy.
Yeah.
And he's like such a boy.
I actually had this weird intuition that like all of this stuff is going to make him religious. Like he's moving in that direction. I really got that feeling when I was watching one of his recent podcasts. I mean, he's putting them out at an insane rate. I don't know how he's doing it.
Well, he's got a great team. I mean, he's got a full blast team. I mean, they're doing it for real. Again, if anybody would want to, fund the Kale and Steve show so that we could have access to these guests and create cool studios, we are very open for business in that regard. Because I do think you and I bring a slightly different, sort of perspective to bear on these sorts of things, but no shade on Jesse. So anyway, he has interviewed a number of experiencers, a number of whistleblowers and scientists and people who have been in and out of the intelligence community and the legacy programs and all the kind of things that you and I read up on and follow. And he had on his show, I think earlier this week or maybe late last week, a whistleblower, former Air Force drone operator named Dylan Borland. And Dylan has got to be what, in maybe his 40s?
I think he's just around 40, very late 30s.
Yeah. And so he goes on Jesse Michaels' show and just starts laying out a bunch of stuff. A lot of it hypotheticals, wink, wink, because why, Steve? Why is he playing this hypothetical game?
Because there's a lot of danger to anybody who comes out of the military or the intelligence community and discloses this stuff, because it's the highest level of secrecy.
What's the punishment for treason?
It's death.
Death, yeah. So
it's capital offense, yeah.
So this guy is laboring under essentially the threat of a death sentence.
I mean, at the very least, he's like, I'll go to jail.
Right. So anyway, his origin story was fascinating. So he's working at an Air Force base, Langley, connected to a NASA base, interestingly enough. And he's going off of one of his sessions, his stints, his shifts, and he's a drone operator.
Yeah. Which was, by the way, that whole section was super interesting too.
Totally
about what it does to the drone operators psychologically to have to be killing people from a safe distance far away. And
you're playing a video game, but instead of like beating Wario, you just like executed some guy out in some desert, far flung, place that nobody knows we're actually engaged in. But okay, all that stuff aside. So anyway, he says in the to Jesse that one night he's coming off shift. He lives on base, so he's walking past a couple of hangars, literally smoking a cigarette, and this triangle appears. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I actually have the clip if you want.
Oh yeah, let's play. Yeah.
Let's see, Borland triangle clip and go.
So I see this light pop up from the NASA hangar, 1:30, 2 a.m., around there, and literally I thought it was a weather balloon. And I see it pop up, smoking a cigarette on the phone. I'm like, oh, that's wild. Clearly, at this time of night, in the middle of the week, you're testing something fun. Don't think anything of it. Begin walking up. So at night, like, you guys know me at this point. Most people know me. I have a thing where I walk, I pace. I'm like, I gotta be doing something. I've always been that way. So I see this. I start walking up the street to the main street to go walk around the track. And I had an old MP3 player. It had like 12 songs on it. In fact, one of the Nas songs was on there, my man.
It was 2012, I think, or 2013 when he did this.
I walk up to the main street, up towards the gym and the JAG office. And as I'm walking up, the light that I see popped up from the NASA hangar. And the light starts to fly to me across the base. And as it flies to me, a triangle manifests around it. To be clear, I am very, very, very adamant about what are the facts. I can't tell you if it's active camouflage. I cannot tell you if it manifested around it. I can't tell you if the light created some crazy wormhole. I can't tell. What I know is it was a white light that became a triangle, flew to me. There's some other stuff that I don't want to get into that is well known in the IC that it did while it happened.
I can't pause it, but the IC is the intelligence community.
But it flew to me and stopped 100 feet in front of me, 100 feet above me. And most beautiful piece of technology I've ever seen. Static electricity, smelled like a lightning storm, shut off my cell phone red hot, which is an indicator of things within the ISR world that you know what's happening. Crazy.
And so it's 100 feet above you. Describe the color, the dimensions of this craft.
So approximately in my official Aero MFR that was classified, I described it between 100 and 150 foot equilateral triangle. There were lights on each corner. There was a center light 2 to 3 times larger in the center. It's black metallic flake paint. I'm looking at it and I can see the edges. So it was flat on the bottom. 2 to 3 times center light, black metallic flake paint. I can feel the static electricity, the phone's turned off, and so like the edges are 90 degrees that come up, and then I never saw the top of it. So like from the bottom to the corners, it was 90 degrees. Who knows what the top of it looked like? But the big one was the outside pulsated move like a lava lamp. It had like this goldish transparent flow around it where the whole craft was, I don't want to call it moving, but it was moving. It's like take a lava lamp, put it on black metallic flake paint, and have the lava lamp flow around it. And it was just sitting there, it would pulsate. Like I could see the intensity on this gold, on this craft pulsating as it flowed around the craft. It was there for like 2-3 minutes or so. And then all of a sudden the center light flashed. That thing shot up. As I said, my opinion is commercial jet level. And then got up there. It looked like a satellite. Sat there for a minute. I finally reset my phone. And it just went right over the Atlantic Ocean.
So that's that clip.
You missed Jesse's whoa. He's like, whoa,
Yeah. And he hears a lot of these stories, but, like Dylan's an interesting guy. He's kind of a character, but like no indication whatsoever that he's doing anything but telling the truth.
Right. So, all right. I just think everybody should just like sit with that for a minute. Like, it's pretty weird stuff, man. It's pretty weird stuff.
And this is the stuff he's allowed to disclose. I mean, he's testified before Congress. He's testified in confidential briefings, TSSCI clearance only. Like, there's a lot of detail here that he's not able to give. This is the superficial aspect that he
But the clip, what I want to point out to the audience here is the clip, is a small little part of the story. But he really, if you watch the whole thing, he's a very credible conversational partner. This is not like there's a believability, there's a plausibility to his testimony that, points to something, right? And, when I was in the middle of watching the episode, I think I texted you at some point. It's like, you're listening to this and you're watching this thing and you're like, these are crazy stories. Mm-hmm. This is not even like woo stuff. I mean, he's very clear, like hard facts. Like this
is very nuts and bolts. This part of it.
Yeah. This part of it. And, so like, I don't know how to say this. It's out there. Like, these conversations are being had, and Jesse Michaels has a very popular, podcast, and I'm sure like 1 million people have seen that. But again, it's so weird to me as someone who is a basically normie passing that, like, how is this not front page news?
Mm-hmm.
Again, think of like, Kale and Steve, 90s kids,
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, look, it's why one of the big reasons I think why Spielberg's Disclosure Day just kind of crash landed, pun halfway intended.
Yeah.
Is because he's still in the whole boomer MacGuffin, like just get the video to the news station and all will be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Yeah.
Right.
And that's not how it works anymore. Like,
so
I watch episodes like this every week.
Yeah.
Sometimes multiple times a week, and people are coming out with crazy stuff.
Right. So again, the sort of the delta between the two of us, I've got other things going on, I can't monitor, quite as much. But what I said to you, and I want to say out loud to folks tuning in here, is that I really feel like Jesse and the whole UAP, corner need like someone to translate this stuff. Like I want to like just do like a live video. Like, guys, did you hear what he just said? Like, his phone is being tapped. Like the reports are being falsified. Like, he's, death threats. Like, there's all these crazy things. And it's like, there's just so much noise that it just doesn't even matter.
Well, it's like, I think there's even more to it than that. There's something that's happened where with social media, with video becoming the primary mode of social media, with everybody being able to have a YouTube channel or a TikTok or whatever,
like us,
everything is about telling stories. And so there are lots of crazy stories in the wild. And I don't think, I worry this sounds like elitist or whatever, but like, I don't think everybody has the discernment machinery to say, this strikes me as true, this strikes me as untrue. There's just a lot of like, you know, I mean, look at all the people who love Candace. Like, they're just like, oh yeah, totally. Like, totally. Israel's behind this. Totally. The guy, Tyler Robinson, who confessed to doing this crime, totally is a patsy for the government. You know, like,
you're buying that Fed slop, Steve.
Right. And so there's so much of that out there. This is all coming to the fore at this time, and it may not be entirely incidental because remember, the number one disinformation technique that is used when you can't contain a story is to flood the zone with a bunch of seemingly credible bullshit. And then as more and more things get debunked, a person who's trying to sift through all of it and figure out what's real and what's not gets exhausted. And they're like, they throw up their hands. Like, I don't know what's real and what's not. I mean, I see UFO videos come up on my X timeline all the time. I don't share the vast majority of them because I'm like, that could be true. That could be CGI. That could be, you know, practical effects done carefully. That could be like, there's nothing dispositive that's happening in this video.
Steve, I mean, you know, early internet, Pixar didn't happen.
Right. And now it's like Pix and it didn't happen.
Pix, especially it didn't happen because we know you brought up the Will Smith video. The reason why you brought up the Will Smith video, or another reason why you brought up the Will Smith video, is that we've gone in the span of 2 years, not even, but we'll just call it 2 years, we've gone through something that is obviously absurd and bad, comically so, to something that is almost impossible to detect.
Yeah, one of the only reasons you can tell something's AI now is because the audio sounds off. The video has reached a level of quality where there are some where, you know, people's skin's a little too shiny. There's some, you know, but some people have found the Goldilocks zone of adding just enough imperfection and just enough noise, and the audio still sounds weird.
Right. And so what you have is this blending of fake and real, right? That has made now that which would in one era have been the gold standard, right? You know, the gold standard is I caught it on film, right? There it is, you know, dead to rights. You know, the flying saucer lands on the lawn of the White House, right? But now, because so much of our lives are not lived out in beat space, they're not lived out in paper, they're not lived out in, you know, literal photographs, right? They're lived out digitally. The digital imaginary has warped us into no longer even being able to trust the very sandbox in which all of us live and move and have our being.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the evidence is just more noise.
More pixels.
And what's interesting is, you know, I mean, it would have been more credible if Dylan Borland had been able to get a video, because 2012, 2013, none of this stuff was like that.
Yeah.
But like he said, like the damn thing shut his cell phone down. It was hot to the touch. He couldn't turn it back on. And he said, I was trying to get a picture of the thing and I couldn't get it to boot back up.
Right.
You know, which is, again, like, it's just a story, but we base so much of our belief on testimonial evidence. And it's why we vet people. It's why we say they're credible. And now, for some reason, we don't buy testimonial evidence anymore. We're like, no, I need this to be tested in a physics lab, or I don't believe it. And it's like, I just don't think that that's not the appropriate epistemology.
Correct. Right. So I didn't know I was going to talk about this today, but why not? Because we're just throwing spaghetti on the wall and but
the spaghetti is delicious.
So, Diana Pasulka was on the Basement podcast yesterday.
That's
2 days ago.
The Y-Files guy.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, very good. And he wanted to talk about, of all things, Saint Maria Agreda, Sister Maria of Agreda.
Is she a saint or is she just?
Good question.
I don't know if she's actually a saint.
Yeah, she might not be officially a saint. So Sister Agreda, Sister Maria of Agreda.
She was a visionary and a mystic of some kind.
Yeah. Back in the 16th century, early 17th century.
Yeah, I'll look her up and see if she got the saint nod.
So one of my all-time favorite books, something that you and I have at least mentioned before, is a book by Carlos Eyre, a Yale historian who wrote to me the magisterial work on the era of history he calls the Reformations. And during COVID, he wrote a book called, and published after the whole COVID lockdown, They Flew. And it is primarily a story about Sister Maria de Agreda and Saint Juan de Cupertino.
She is venerable, by the way.
She is
venerable,
okay.
But not a saint.
Yeah. All right. Gosh, I love our nerdery. This
is very
unmatched.
Catholic pedantry.
Right.
You can be venerable, you can be blessed, you can be saint.
But interestingly enough, we come out of this sort of Catholic world, right? Yeah. And we have
sainthood is like having a black belt in being.
Yeah. But
venerable's like a yellow belt.
Right. Like we're getting close. We're getting close, right? You may stall out there for hundreds of years. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right.
Especially if you wrote really interesting things.
Right. Then it's like, okay. So he wants to talk about Sister Maria de Agreda. And the reason why he wants to talk about Sister Maria de Agreda and why Pasulka brings her up is that she's a visionary, like I said, from the late 16th, early 17th century. And she bilocates to the New World, as the story goes, right? And there's loads and loads and loads of documentary evidence, interviews and
didn't she appear to the Indians in New Mexico?
Correct, right? And as the Lady in Blue, so that when the Spanish missionaries are literally going there physically for the first time to go spread the gospel, because they actually did that, they thought it was important to do that. A whole group of them had already been proselytized. They knew about Jesus. They knew about the story, the Gospels, all of these sorts of things. So the missionaries show up and they're the first white guys there, right? The first Europeans there. And they're like, oh yeah, we already know about that. The lady, the blue lady told us all about that. And they're like, what are you talking about here? Okay. So,
and apparently they killed her a few times, but because she was there only in spirit form, she came back.
Right.
And that was part of what persuaded them, is the same woman kept coming back even after they had violently attacked her.
Right. Now, this is the part, I'm sure, where people who have tuned in now for 2 hours and 45 minutes are like, okay, we've jumped the shark. Okay. So the reason why I bring these stories up is that we in the 21st century now have this kind of epistemology that is completely shut off for these kinds of stories. Now, what I love about Eyre's book so much is that he steers right into the weird. And he says, look, I get it. None of us believe these things. Okay. But he, as an historian who can read in the original languages in Latin and Spanish, he's saying, in order for you to dismiss this as poppycock, you have to dismiss reams and reams and reams of documentary evidence. We have more documentary evidence for these things than for Genghis Khan.
And it's not pictures, it's testimonial, right?
Correct, right? And remember, the whole reason why we have all of these reams of documentary evidence is that the bros in the Vatican are like, y'all are crazy. But lots of people don't think you're crazy. So the Inquisition, we are going to stress test the heck out of this story.
The advocatus diaboli,
right?
The devil's advocate, that term comes from the guy whose job it was to say, you say this person's a saint, right. I'm going to find the problem.
Right. And so imagine in 2026, you stroll out of your 12-hour session working the drones, killing the bad guys, and you're walking across the base on the phone with your bro and smoking a cigarette, and you see this triangle, this molten lava triangle show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know what to say. Like, of course,
but you see my point. In other words,
like, nobody's going to believe it.
Right.
So it rests on my credibility. It rests on my testimony. It rests on the consistency of my story. It rests on what people know about my character.
Right. All those kinds of things. And so we are oddly enough in this weird place where we're comparing visionary stories of a bilocating saint and a guy in his 40s, an American who loves his country, saying, I saw this thing.
And then Dylan, of course, bridges the gap between the two. So we're gonna do another clip. This one is this is where he says that there's some indication that we're not the ones controlling disclosure. So this is a 2-minute clip. Let's go.
You wanted whistleblowers. We came out. We stuck our necks out. We threw caution to the wind in service for God, family, country. And here we are. Dave's hands are tied behind his back up in Congress.
Dave Grush.
Burleson and Luna and Moskowitz. Everybody's trying to do this. Where is everybody?
Well, that's what strikes me most about this whole topic is it almost feels like there's like a paranormal or parapsychological control mechanism around not letting this stuff out. Because if you think about it, if the claim is that, the U.S. government has a multi-generational crash retrieval program, we have saucers, or if not saucers, parts of saucers and other, geometries, triangles or whatever in hangars, bodies, all these things, right? Then the interesting question to me is like, how come very few smoking guns end up rising to the top in the age of social media and smartphones in the open source context? And there are easy answers to that where it's like, okay, only a few crashes have happened. It really seems like it's this directed energy plus nuclear thing. And so it's all
this is where it gets good,
concentrated in certain areas. But I think there are crashes outside of that as well. And so you get into this weird thing where it's like, is the non-human intelligence in control of the cover-up too?
My opinion?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Have you ever talked to anybody in a credible position in the government who seems to have hinted that humans aren't in charge?
The ICIG did it.
What did they
personally
say?
I want to respect them. But the ICIG did it with me. Yes.
So the Intelligence Community Inspector General told you that humans are not in charge.
They extremely hinted at it, yes.
Holy shit. That is crazy.
Notice what he does there.
Yes.
That is insane.
Okay. So we're coming up to the 3-hour mark, and I want to get through these last couple clips.
Yeah.
They're shorter as we go so that we can have our last little discussion about this.
Yeah.
But so, Borland blesses himself there, right? So here he gets into kind of the crossover into the spiritual nature of this.
Say that you and I have a soul. We die, and based off of current humanity, you have Neuralink, you have CRISPR, you have all of these technologies. Like we discussed, 100 years ago, humans compared to today are the same. In 100 years, you can genetically modify a human to be 190 IQ, 6'7", dunking a basketball that's 12 feet high, connected to Neuralink, controlling radios and stuff with your mind. Like, that technology exists now. It exists now. It can be done. Last night we discussed, and this goes back to the UFO subject, hypothetically, if we have that technology now, between robotics and AI, you don't really need humans. So if you're an advanced civilization and you're able to do this and you're 1,000 years ahead of us, well, there's a theory, what we discussed as a hypothetical, you would want to create a entity and a testing program to operate in shades of gray to know who you are at your soul, at your heart. And when we die is like, okay, this person has these characteristics they can fill in. And then, oh, by the way, because we're monitoring humans here, because we are humans at a soul level, just in the afterlife, I bring all that up. I have never seen evidence for it. Again, I'm a Catholic, so I believe in sainthood. I make no declaration on goes to heaven or hell. I make a declaration on I want to be a saint.
Which is just like not what I expected him to drop.
No, I know.
In the middle of this podcast. And, and he had a whole very emotional discussion of Paul Thigpen, who's the Catholic theologian who famously kind of posited that there's no reason why aliens, couldn't be compatible with Catholic theology. I don't know a ton about him. I remember seeing people in our sphere talking about him. And I can't remember if you were one of them or if it was Larry Chapp or who it was.
It was Larry.
But Dylan was apparently super close to him. I mean, he got really choked up when he was talking about his passing. And then the last clip I'm going to play, and then I'm going to let you rip, is just this quick why he came forward at all.
I came forward because I wanted to save lives. I didn't give a shit about UFOs.
So you were inspired by the unfair retributions
and
being hurled against current whistleblowers, and you wanted to kind of jump in.
That, and then also, like, I have a thing, and we talked about this, I'm a Catholic. It doesn't mean all other religions are wrong. I just know for me it's right. I'm going to have to answer for everything when I pass away. And I can't go and die and look God in the eyes and say, like, hey, this shit is real to some extent. What did you do? Because if you would have said it, then you could have saved a life. That's why.
There's a real spiritual motivation in this.
Yeah. And like you said, I'm listening to this guy talk to Jesse, and, that turn happens, and you're like, for me, like, wow, like this is, again, totally I was not expecting that at all.
I mean, you can look him up on X, and his bio, the first thing is Roman Catholic. Like that's like I don't know if this pushed him into it more.
Right.
He did say, I think if I remember correctly, because I watched this a little over a week ago, and I've watched a lot in between, that he had a spiritual experience. He's an experiencer there as well, which is what led to his like either conversion or reversion or whatever, but like something that made him take faith way more seriously, but he wasn't ready to talk about it. But he said something happened. And there is a through line here. Like UFO experiencers and religious experiences are often the same people.
It's this interesting overlap that
it's like for some people the veil is thinner somehow.
Right.
And I still don't know what to do with it.
No, nor do I. And we would be lying if either of us said we know what to do with it, right? But going back to that penultimate clip, we're not in charge.
Mm-hmm.
Like a bedrock. We talked about reality. A bedrock, tenet of the modern imaginary is that we are in control. Now, as a Catholic, I could sort of have fun with that one and kind of poke holes in it. Fine, but the whole Enlightenment project is that stuff is just stuff and we are in control of stuff. That's the magic of science. And this is a guy like deeply embedded in the military industrial complex, right? And he kind of turns and says, we're not really in charge.
Yeah, there's a wizard in Oz.
Right.
And he might not be a person at all.
Right.
It's a big claim, but it has explanatory power. And so as a model, you have to consider it, because one of the things that I have grappled with the most over the past decade since I've really gotten back into this topic is why does it work the way it works? Why is the government in control of revealing this? If these things are here and there's an overwhelming amount of circumstantial and testimonial evidence that they are, then what is their motivation for keeping quiet? Why aren't they announcing themselves to us? Why is it not the day the earth stood still? Why is it like, why are they not doing disclosure? Why does the US government or the deep state or whoever it is get to have the final say over this? But there are, one explanatory model is they don't want everyone to know. And they maybe told the people who are in charge here, if you let everybody know, bad things will happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and you really do feel like there's some sort of like hostage situation,
Like we become the gatekeepers of ourselves. They delegate. I mean, I talked to you last episode of the one before about this sci-fi series, The Captives War, where the aliens who invade and like capture, the members of humanity, they put a human being who gets the way they work in charge and is basically like, keep your people in line or we'll do it for you.
Right. I mean, this is childhood's end. This is like, it's a through line that I think we have to take seriously. Again, I don't have the answers. You don't have the answers, but the pattern keeps showing itself, right? It's almost like a via negativa, right? It's like this shadow force. You can't see it, but you can see its effects. And, who the heck knows, Steve? I mean, but what I'll continue to sort of scream from the mountaintops is that something like this is something, and
he's talking about the same transhumanist forces that we've been discussing this whole episode.
I know.
The integration of like biology and technology and the transcendent and changing nature that creates. It's what Pasulka's getting at in her book. Like again and again and again, this theme keeps coming back in a way that it feels important.
Right. And one of the most chilling things I've ever seen Elon tweet out, he says something a couple of years ago, he said something like, human beings are a bootloader for what comes next. And, this is the part of Elon that I'm not a fan of, but fine. But the fact that he said this out loud, what do you make of that? Is that signal or is that noise? But we know that there's a non-zero number of people who are running these frontier labs that certainly believe that.
Well, I mean, look, it's the logical consequence of what he's developing.
Right.
Like there's no mystery here.
Right.
If AI powered robots are going to outnumber humans in the orders of magnitude that he's talking about, if they are going to do all this work both terrestrially and in space, if their computational powers are going to far, outstrip our own, then what we're going to wind up with is the next evolution of consciousness or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And we're going to be sort of the precursor race to this new robotic whatever thing that comes next that's going to be the thing that colonizes the universe and does everything else. So I don't think it's cryptic at all. I think he's saying we're already on the cusp of AGI. They're going to be smarter than us. We hope that they're going to take care of us because they're going to exceed our capacity. But they're an inevitability. So get ready because we're the bootloader for what comes next.
Right. Not, I got to tell you, I mean, it kind of chills me to my core, man. Cause I don't know what that could mean. And there's this sort of base level of distrust that I have for these people who seem to have every incentive in the world to keep pushing this frontier.
But like so many catastrophic things, whatever it is, wherever you are in your life. I mean, I'm at a place in my life where I have done nothing for the past year, but evaluate choices I made 20, 25 years ago, right? Like, how did I wind up where I am? Because it isn't where I wanted to be. And it's very easy to think if I had just taken a left turn at Albuquerque, things would have wound up different. But sometimes, you go over it and you go over it and you go over it and you're like, no, I actually think every road would have led here.
Yeah.
And I think with technology, every road leads here. Like there's no way human beings were going to develop computers and everything that they've developed
doesn't come here.
And it doesn't wind up here because it naturally follows. Each step logically follows the one that came before it. And so once you start down that road, that's always going to happen, but you didn't know when you started down the road it was always going to happen. You only have the benefit of hindsight. So it couldn't have been averted at the outset.
Right. No, I track. Yeah. What have we birthed? Or what has been birthed through us is maybe a better way to say it.
And what is it attracting? Because there is an argument to be made that this whole UAP and NHI phenomenon has been waiting for us to attain a certain level of technological mastery,
right?
Where we either become a threat or we become conversant enough that they feel like they can communicate with us.
Yeah, and many folks in this space talk about summoning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, oh, okay, summoning. Color me, you know, spooked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't remember which thing I was watching. I've watched so many podcasts in the last week, but somebody was talking about how Einstein, like the whole spooky action at a distance thing you talk about, like was really worried about how spooky quantum mechanics are.
Yeah.
And how we don't fundamentally really understand how anything works. And he was kind of scared of it. Now, I didn't vet that myself, but I'd never heard that before.
Yeah, I've heard
and I
that.
thought it was really interesting. That's why he used that word. It wasn't just a little translation from German. Like he really thought it was spooky.
Yeah, he was. No, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Everything that I've read about Einstein, the thought, that, I think it's interesting, of course, that an engineer makes a group of engineers make the Manhattan Project work, not just the theoretical guys.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, of course, in the movie, there's this interesting, weird relationship between Oppenheimer and Einstein. And they have that scene where they kind of see each other in Princeton. And I probably should rewatch the film, but that like the theoreticians are on one side of the Victor Frankenstein divide and the engineers are on the other, and so the theoretical ones are like, I think we can do this, but he's asking the question, should we? Whereas the engineer doesn't concern himself with the theoretical implications. The engineer just engineers. It's what an engineer does.
Right. He carries out the recipe.
Yeah.
But all of this, and this is something that I want to get competent enough that we can really discuss for a full episode, comes back to the idea of consciousness. Because with AI, we're asking, what is consciousness? Can a machine derive some sort of synthetic consciousness? With UFOs, they're summoned through consciousness, like interaction with them happens via conscious, communication or whatever. The telepathy tapes, this idea of consciousness, and these kids are able to see, and communicate with these things. I mean, Jesse's talking on Joe Rogan about how these nonverbal autistic kids can read hieroglyphs, in the Egyptian pyramids, and they know what they mean and all that, and they've never been taught the stuff.
Right.
Like, Ian McGilchrist looks at consciousness as sort of the substrate of reality. He's kind of a panpsychist.
Yeah.
Everything about the intersection of all this stuff comes back to what is consciousness? Where does it live? How are we collapsing the wave function? Is Penrose right? And it has nothing to do, with the observer,
it's a different field. Yeah.
Or is it really that the observer is the one doing? I mean, on the episode where I think it's the one where Jesse's talking to Joe Rogan, he says that they've actually proven with random number generators that people can influence what the random number generators produce.
They're going to yield, yeah.
Like to a degree that is non-trivial. If they keep wanting this to happen, then it happens. Rogan interviewed a guy, or no, it was Jesse interviewed a guy the other day, I think, one of the two. I don't know who he is, Tom somebody, but he taught an Alexa to remote view and got it to do it accurately. And he thinks the reason that it can do it accurately is because it's dumber than most AI, and being too smart actually complicates people's ability to do it.
Interesting. Wow.
And Jesse says, yeah, same deal. Like these guys who can influence the number generators, once they get good at it, they psych themselves out and they can't do it anymore. There's something in consciousness that is interacting with all of these phenomena. And the evolution of human consciousness is the whole freaking thing that Pasulka is talking about, and Desjardins and Marshall McLuhan and all the guys that she's calling on.
Yeah.
There is a node here that is kind of like a black hole, and we can't see it. We can just see the event horizon. And I want to go deeper into it.
Yeah.
I want to understand it better. Because we just act like we know a hell of a lot more than we actually do. And it's hubris, in my opinion. Yeah. We don't get how any of this stuff actually works.
Dude, I think you just laid out like 6 or 7 episodes for us.
I wish we had people like that really, really knew this stuff we could talk to, because we can only kind of graze the surface on it with what we know.
Right.
To become a subject matter expert on something that nobody's figured out, it's not called the hard problem for no reason.
Right.
People spent their whole lives studying this, and they're still scratching their heads.
There's lots of weird stuff out there, man, and I think it's going to get weirder. And in a weird way, it's so interesting when we have these conversations. Like, I start to grasp the contours of a unity. That I can't quite keep everything on a front burner just enough.
No, it's elusive. It's like something that is just outside of the field of view.
Yeah, the observer effect.
And it makes it scary in a way, because you're like, I feel something there, and I don't know what it is. It's like a cockroach moving through a dark room.
Yeah.
You're like, I swear I saw movement in the corner.
I know it's
eye.
there. Yeah, I know it's there.
So yeah, I guess we're gonna leave it there. Sorry to leave you hanging, everybody, but it's 3 hours and 9 minutes. So
breadcrumbs for later, my friend.
Yeah.
All right, man. Be well.
As always, great to talk. This actually went by so freaking fast.
I know. I blanked. I'm like, wait, what? Amazing.
All right, man. Catch you next time.
Be well. Yeah, cheers.
All right, bye.